Y'all already know we got our brother Tahuti in the building, and he is going up against a heavy hitter, you know, who have been featured on this platform for a while now. Vocab Malone. I don't think Vocab. I hope Vocab put in his homework. I hope he knows a little bit about Tahuti and put in his homework, because Tahuti himself is not a lightweight. All right. So I want everybody to sit back and relax. I'm going to give both of you gentlemen, both of you brothers, 3 minutes apiece for your opening argument. Vocab will be going first. Vocab will be going first for his first 10-minute round. It will be 3 rounds, and then you would have 5 minutes to close out as well. So when you get down to 2 minutes, I will let y'all know you got 2 minutes on the clock left. And then when you get down to 1 minute, I'll let you know you got 1 minute. So that way y'all can wind down and get everything out that y'all want out. Are there any questions, brothers?
No.
All right. No questions. All right. Let's move.
Peace. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
On the screen right now for the public, is it just showing the flyer? Or is it showing us?
No, it's showing the flyer right now.
Okay.
And now it's showing y'all.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to see. Thank you.
All right. When you ain't talking, everybody go on mute. Vocab Malone, is there any questions, brother?
No.
Any questions, Tahuti? Yes? No? Okay, let's get it. Let's get this thing going. You got 3 minutes in this opening argument, my brother. It's on you, Vocab. Time will start when you start.
I can share my screen?
Yes. You going to use your screen for the opening?
Yeah, and you can hear me well?
Yes, I hear you well.
Okay. All right.
Your screen is showing.
All right. Let me set my calendar here, or my timer here, and we'll start. You got the calendar. Okay. All right, cool. The Christ mythicist thesis that Tehuti holds to has been disproved a long time ago, but it's been revived on the internet. It's been disproved in academic circles, but the internet has revived it. And a lot of scholars, even those who are not Christian, are annoyed by its revival. The thesis is that there is no evidence that Jesus of Nazareth ever actually lived. If you look at my first illustration by J. Warner Wallace, you'll see that even going outside of the New Testament, you have lots of historical references to Jesus Christ outside of even the New Testament, which is eyewitness accounts. But then you have folks who either knew eyewitnesses or had some other way to have information. Suetonius, Celsus, Josephus, the Talmud, Thallus, Tacitus, Bar, Serapion, Phlegon, and Pliny the Younger. And those are just some. And those are all what we consider hostile. These are not Christian writers. These are not people friendly to Christianity, as we're going to see when we get into it. And you can learn a little bit about Jesus Christ as a man of history by each one of these writers, again, on the screen, and we can get into any one of these, showing that there never was a doubt that Jesus Christ was a historical man. If you look over to the right side of the screen, one is Celsus. He was one of the earliest critics of Christianity, and he never for a second doubted that Jesus existed. And yet you have Kemetic folks who come a long way later and say, oh, he did not exist. But we need to ask ourselves, when we look at history, what makes a good explanation and what's a bad explanation? When it comes to historical explanations, here's some criteria at a glance. Does the explanation have good explanatory scope? Does it explain a lot? Is it wide, not narrow? Similarly, does it have explanatory power? Is it convincing and reliable in its explanations, and does it do a good job of accounting for the data that we know? Is it plausible? Is there plausibility? For example, is it plausible that a bunch of monotheistic Hebrews would all of a sudden adopt gods of their former and current oppressors? Is it plausible? Is it less as opposed to more ad hoc? Ad hoc has to do with after the fact, meaning you explain things after the fact. A good model has predictive power in that it explains things prior to encountering them. The Christ mythicist theory, whenever it encounters data contradicting its thesis, always has to tack on ad hoc explanations, which are really not explanations at all. Say things like, well, that must be a forgery, that reference, or he probably heard that from Christians.
10 seconds.
Things like that. Say what?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Well, okay, I'll stop there, but here's what I'm going to say. The Christ myth model that Tehuti's going to put forward fails on every element of being a good historical explanation, and that's why it will not win.
All right. All right. Unshare the screen. Brother Tahuti, it's on you, my brother. It is on you. Unshare. All right, brother Tahuti. I'm getting ready to say natural Tahuti. Tahuti, it is on you, my brother. You got 3 minutes in this round. The time will start when you start, brother. Unmute yourself.
Yes, in this introduction, the peace, everyone. Mod Hotep, greetings. Glad to be back. And I want to first start off my introduction by apologizing to the Heavenly Father that I have to kill his son again on his birthday. It's going to be a bad birthday for Jesus. And saving my introduction, my information for the actual rounds, there is no information, first-hand account from the indigenous people themselves of a Yeshua, of a Jesus, of a Jesus that performed many miracles that took place. And it's going to be very interesting watching this gentleman produce information factually from first-hand accounts from indigenous people. You notice all the people he put up on the screen that are supposedly to have records are all European-looking people that are not walking around at the time of Jesus. What we're going to discuss today is if there is some indigenous-looking people with indigenous writings that discuss their impactful moments with this being called Yeshua, who fulfilled prophecy. Did the indigenous people of the land themselves finally, after 2,000 years of prophecy, supposedly from the book of Genesis all the way to the book of Malachi, did they finally receive their Savior? He would be the biggest talk of the town. It would be the greatest moment ever that have taken place in Hebrew history, that the prophesied Messiah finally came back. So therefore, when he came back, or when he comes back, there would be multiple writings and multiple accounts of this impactful moment that took place that affected hundreds of thousands of people. So we're going to be looking at those accounts if they exist, not the accounts of those Europeans that existed after the fact. That is my introduction. I'm going to save the ammunition and information for the actual rounds when they occur. But peace and love, everybody. We're going to remove this myth called Jesus that was derived from Heru. Peace. That's fine. I don't need much more time. I'd rather get into the rounds.
All right, family. You already see what it is. We getting ready to get this thing rolling. Vocab, you got the first 10 minutes in this round. It's on you, my brother. When you're ready, time will start.
I like how
Your
Tehuti,
screen is up. Your screen is up. We see it.
You see,
let me know
you see
when you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
When you get
I
down
like
to
how
2 minutes,
Tehuti-
I'll let you know 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Tehuti demands that we have people indigenous to the culture.
I'm starting your time.
Okay. Tehuti demands that we have people indigenous to the culture, yet he rejects the New Testament. If Tehuti wants to accept the New Testament, then the debate is over for him right now. I mean, that's hypothetical because I think it's already over. Despite what he's going to say, you're going to see him make massive mistakes tonight because the Christ mythist theory that he holds to is one big mistake. Now, let me show you that Tehuti is in such a minority in this position that it's not a scholarly or an academic position. He claims to be some kind of master teacher, and yet everyone who is an expert in the field, atheist, agnostic, Christian alike, understands the data is strong for Jesus Christ. For example, John Dominic Crossan, who denies the supernatural. John Dominic Crossan does not believe in the supernatural. Listen to this quote from his book, The Historical Jesus. Jesus' death by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate is as sure as anything historical can ever be. For if no follower of Jesus had written anything for 100 years after his crucifixion, notice what he's saying there, we would still know about him from two authors not among his supporters. Their names are Flavius Josephus and Cornelius Tacitus. And I'm going to show you Tacitus and Josephus today, and don't let Tahuti fool you about Josephus. Josephus was a Hebrew. Unless he thinks the Hebrews were European, like some kind of Anglo-Israelite, then his charge about, look, it looks like Europeans on the screen, which is silly considering their illustrations and they weren't even colored, that argument's not going to work with Josephus. But nonetheless, truth is not determined by skin color. Is it, Tehuti? Now, let me show you that even atheists and agnostics deny the Christ mythicist thesis and don't just write in general about the historic Jesus. They write books specifically against it because they're so perturbed by it. The best example is Maurice Casey. Hardcore atheist. His writings have been described as anti-Christian, and yet he has a book shredding the Christ mythicist theory, including some of the arguments I've heard the gentleman I'm debating tonight, I've heard him use these arguments. Same thing with John Dominic Crossan, who I already mentioned. Bart Ehrman, who's obviously a critic of Christianity. All of his books are criticizing something in relationship to the New Testament, yet he has a book for the argument of the historicity of Jesus. Same thing with Marcus Borg. None of these are Christians. Now let's just look at three. I know that our quote said two, but we're going to look at three: Josephus, Tacitus, and Suetonius. And if we want to, let's go to some of these other that are on the screen as well, but we'll just do these right here. Josephus, who was a Hebrew, wrote this in his Antiquities. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. That last line in there, by the way, is for my Hebrew Israelite friends who deny the reality that Jesus accepted Gentiles. You better hope he does, guys. And it's right there, he does. Now, Josephus has a lot of important works in regards to first century Palestine. He's our go-to source. He's a treasure trove of information for this area. And he writes this particular work around 93 AD. And some people have said, well, it looks like there's some sections in the Josephus passage on Jesus, sometimes called the Testimonium Flavonium, a little difficult to pronounce, that look like they're interpolations. So some people say we should take some of those sections out. Okay, that would be the three red sections I have highlighted on the screen. And here's the reason why. On the left side, I have an Arabic text. The Arabic text from the 10th century, brought out in the 70s by Shlomo Pines, shows lack of any of the red sections, meaning it doesn't have the red additions. It looks like it's a more pure copy of Josephus. And so there is the basis of what he said in the white. And I want to bring out what Josephus wrote about Jesus Christ, again, around 93. And when Pilate sentenced him to the cross following the accusation of our leading men, those who had loved him in the beginning did not cease to do so. There is actually a manuscript from it right there. The Josephus passage I'm talking about with the highlighted section in blue where he speaks about Jesus. This is very important. This is early testimony. This is someone who's knowledgeable and authoritative, someone who knows the area, someone that historians constantly rely on for this area, and someone that we have multiple copies, and including copies like the Arabic manuscripts I mentioned, which are shorter and hardly anyone doubts their authenticity as far as the parts that I had highlighted out. So there's Josephus, and I want to bring out one other thing. Notice how Josephus mentions Pilate. Pilate, of course, is mentioned frequently in the New Testament. You'll see again and again and again in the life of Jesus and in the New Testament, there are multiple archaeological corroborations. For example, the Pilate stone discovered, I believe, in 1961, where Pilate built some building and then put it in honor to the Caesar's name, and he's got his name on it as well. This Pilate inscription is archaeological evidence to corroborating characters. This is very different than some of the things that Tehuti thinks really happened in regards to ancient Egypt. And now we go to the next one, Tacitus. We're looking here at the Codex Medicius, and this is Tacitus in an old Latin copy. Let's see what Tacitus, the Roman historian, again, highly used for areas such as this, said about Jesus Christ. This is in book 1544. And notice the time frame here. This is his life. This is not super late. If Tehuti thinks it's late, that's because he probably hasn't trafficked much in ancient history. If he understands here, you have a historian writing about someone who's a carpenter, who's of an oppressed people, a Roman elite historian writing about it, there must be a reason why, and we're going to find out what the reason is. Here's the quote. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to read the rest of the quote, but I want to point out how he ties it to the same exact historical time the New Testament itself gives data to. So what we're seeing here today is that we have corroborative evidence from non-Christian sources early that corroborate what we know about the historical Jesus. Here you have his form of death. You have the name of the founder of Christianity. You have two people involved as far as the Roman side. This is significant. If Tehuti doesn't recognize the significance of this, again, I think it's probably because he hasn't trafficked much in ancient history, even though he says he does. I think we'll see tonight that's not the case. Continuing the quote, in a most mischievous superstition, clearly he's not a sympathizer to Christianity. He calls it a mischievous superstition. Thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil. Notice also, Tehuti, that he gives the provenance from where this came from. And it's not Kemet, it's not Egypt, it's Judea. So he understands the actual source. Why don't you? And he calls it evil. So this is somebody who is not sympathetic to Christian desires, to Christian claims. The first source of the evil, but even in Rome, saying it spread, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Now, if he thought it was just a remix of some ancient gods, he probably would have been okay with it, because if you know anything about the Romans, they respected things that were old. They didn't like trendy new things. They liked things that were old. And that's why, even though they thought the Jews were weird, they allowed them to worship, because they realized their religion was a religion that was an older religion. And this is just understanding the Roman mindset. And so he views this as something new. Why doesn't Tehuti? Maybe Tacitus knew better. There's the section highlighted right there, and you can see in the second line on the far left where it says the word Christus. It's right there. And notice also how he mentions Caesar. The Christ suffered the extreme.
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. That's a way to refer to crucifixion. Again, we have Tiberius. During this time, we have corroboration galore, and this is fascinating because you have archaeological corroboration all over. It's reasons like this that we can learn a lot of things about Jesus, even from outside sources. The list is on your screen. I wish I had time to run it down. Hopefully later I will. And I'm going to have to skip Suetonius for now, but I'll bring that back to Tehuti because I want to get to this quote from secular agnostic Bart Ehrman, who said this: with respect to Jesus, we have numerous independent accounts of his life in the sources lying behind the Gospels and the writings of Paul, sources that had originated in Jesus' native tongue, Aramaic, and that can be dated to within just a year or two of his life before the religion moved to convert pagans in droves. Historical sources like that are pretty astounding for an ancient figure of any kind. The claim that Jesus was simply made up falters on every ground. And when you talk about the writings of Paul, which are the earliest in the New Testament, besides the book of James, as far as them being completed, all of these things we can gain from the writings of Paul. This is starting in the 40s that we have writings there. So if you want someone who's not European, here's Paul. Will you accept what Paul said about Jesus?
10
it's
seconds.
on the screen for you to see. And I end with one more quote from Bart Ehrman. Jesus existed, and those vocal persons who deny it do so not because they have considered the evidence with the dispassionate eye of the historian, but because they have some other agenda that this denial serves.
Time.
Tonight, your agenda is exposed.
All right. Unshare the screen. Mute yourself. Brother Tahuti. The 10 minutes will start. You are up next, my brother. The first round. The 10 minutes will start when you start.
Peace, brother. Before we begin, did you say that after each round we get a 3-minute rebuttal?
Yes. Right after you finish, Vocab will rebuttal you for 3. You will rebuttal him for 3 minutes.
Okay, so I'm not rebuttaling what he just did right now.
No, you're doing your round first.
Okay.
You know what? Hold on.
Yeah, that would make
Vocab.
it'd be good to rebuttal fresh, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I got an echo every time somebody comes on, by the way.
Hold on, let me put you on mute, Tahuti. Vocab, you hear me?
Headphones. I think he needs some headphones.
Yeah, that's what he needs. That's what
That's
it
the
is.
problem right there.
But look, Vocab, I think I like that. Do you think the 3-minute rebuttal is first? That'll be better because it's fresh.
Sure, I'm cool.
Yes.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so we'll do that. Yeah, we'll give the 3-minute rebuttal right now that you did. Tahuti is on you. 3-minute rebuttal.
Okay, let's come in.
These?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me, or is there an echo because I don't have headphones?
We hear you. You got an echo. I'm turning this off. You're good.
Okay, so I may not need headphones. Okay, good. All right, peace, everyone. So, as far as the 3-minute rebuttal, let's go ahead and start, and then I can get into the round. I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, screen share here, and let's get into this. Okay, so first off, as I said from the beginning, he will not show any indigenous accounts of the people discussing this creature named Jesus. Here's who he shows, though. Can everybody see my screen here? He shows all these European-looking type people. This is his picture. Now, I don't know if any of these people look anything like Eddie Murphy or even a light-skinned brother or even an Indian. But these are the pictures that he's showing, and they're all post-Jesus. These are his outside sources. These are the people that I believe and that I show are a part of this plan. They're a part of pushing this Jesus story. All of these type of people. He has not shown one indigenous writing. As a matter of fact, he showed Josephus, and he even admitted that there are errors that should be taken out. He said it's 96 AD, 93 to 96 AD, 96 years after Jesus. Imagine that. Imagine people writing about Obama. Imagine there being a silence for 96 years, and then all of a sudden somebody writes about Barack Obama or George Bush or even Michael Jackson. Jesus, who is the most important Hebrew figure, supposed to be, if he's real. And he shows this. He shows in red. He said, here are the suspicious parts that can be taken out. Now, if this was an original document, there wouldn't be any suspicious parts that need to be taken out. There wouldn't be any need to put anything in red. And you notice, and I want to know, did Josephus write Arabic? Was Josephus an Arab? So I want to see the original writing of Josephus with the translation underneath. What he shows this thing called Testimonium Flavianum, and he shows this Arabic text. And he says, see, this Arabic text doesn't have these 3 missing parts in it. Why are we looking at an Arabic text from a Hebrew? Why aren't we just looking at the original Hebrew text? Does he have the original Hebrew text? Is there original Hebrew text? Because this is a forgery. It's been proven to be a forgery. This is why he says that these 3 parts here in red are suspicious and they can be taken out. But if I show an original Kemetic document or any Sumerian document from the cuneiform tablets, I don't have to take anything out. It's the actual original tablets. But he's showing some Arabic language from a Hebrew and not showing the actual Hebrew words that this man wrote. We can't look at the original because the original wouldn't have these parts, and that's why he separated these parts and said, yeah, we can take them out. Why do we have to take them out? I thought this was the original writing. And once again, this is 96 years after this Jesus character. So again, I'm going to close out by saying there's no original documents. There's nothing. He shows this for the last 10 seconds. If I can pull the screen up. He shows Tacitus, another European here, 55 AD, again, after Jesus. So all these are after the time of Jesus. I'm looking for original writings.
Time. You could go right into your 10 minutes.
Okay.
Josephus in Greek,
is it his turn yet? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, good. I'm going to get into my... Okay. Okay, so This man right here. If everybody can. Oh, am I screen sharing, Sal?
Not yet.
Okay, let me go ahead and put it back up.
I see it. You up and running.
I'm up and running. Okay.
10 minutes will start when you're ready.
Okay, we can start now. So here we go. Here's the story that we're expected to believe of this this creature named Jesus. You have from 0 AD to 33 AD, and this is the time period that Jesus is claimed to have existed. You have all of these events taking place where he heals the sick, he resurrects dead people, he walks on water. He does all these amazing things. He resurrects people from graves that they could walk into Jerusalem. He does all of these things, and then from the time he dies, for 40 years, there's complete silence. Everyone forgets about the most powerful prophesied Son of God that came to earth to redeem the world. Then all of a sudden, after 40 years of silence, then everybody remembers all of a sudden. Then begins the book of Mark. Then begins Matthew. Then begins Luke. Okay? When you look at Jesus and his miracles, and his claim miracles, we have Matthew 14:21. 5,000 people are fed. Imagine this. 5,000 Hebrews are fed. But of course the racism will begin when we're taught that Hebrews didn't read or write their own language back then. They didn't. Not a person, not even one of these 5,000 people knew how to read in his own language or write in his own language. So we don't have one diary of 5,000 starving people being fed. And it says here in Luke 5:15, but so much more went there the fame abroad of him, and great multitudes came together to hear. So the fame of Jesus is spreading all abroad, and there's multitudes coming together to hear. But wherever this fame is spreading, nobody's writing about it. Nobody's talking about it. It's just spreading some miraculous way. Now, we go over here. There are multiple references in the Bible of people of the supposed time of Jesus speaking Hebrew. Why is there not one indigenous account of the amazing prophecies of Yeshua, the Son of the Most High, he greatly affected all these people? We have references to people speaking and reading and writing Hebrew. Here it is in Acts 21:39. But Paul said, I'm a man which I am Jew of Tarsus, of the city of Silica, citizen of no mean the city. I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people in the Hebrew language. It's not showing on the screen, but if you go to that quote, it says the Hebrew language. Here it is right here. Acts 21:40. He spoke unto them in the Hebrew tongue. So there's people speaking and listening in their Hebrew tongue. Are they illiterate where they can't write? Here we have in the story of Jesus in John 19:20, over his head. You guys remember the story when we were children? That this thing here, this wooden thing was over the cross, and the title then read, many of the Jews read it, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, which means the people of the time were able to speak and read Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Where are the Hebrew records of this Jesus? Here we have people writing it on the board on the top of his crucifixion so they could read it. So there's obviously people that are reading and writing Hebrew. Where's their accounts? We have Jesus' own sister. We have Mary. We have Mary of Magdalene. Jesus said unto her, Mary. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni. Rabboni is a Hebrew word. This is in John 20:16. So Jesus and Mary are speaking Hebrew. But you know who else speaks Hebrew at the time? Oh, we'll go on here. Now we have Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, he yelled up, and behold the veil of the temple. And I'm going to go down here. It says, and there came graves after the resurrection, and they went into the holy city. So the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints arose and came out of the graves after the resurrection and went into the city. So here all these decayed, dying, dead bodies by the hundreds or thousands come out of their graves and start walking into either Damascus or Jerusalem, and nobody writes about it. Nobody. Imagine that. These are saints. Saints are well-known people. And it says into the holy city. And nobody wrote about it of the indigenous people. But guess who else spoke Hebrew? Jesus himself. Jesus himself in Matthew 27:46 on the cross supposedly says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. So he's speaking Hebrew or Aramic or whatever you want to call that language, Hebrew or Aramic. He's speaking it. Many of the Jews read this on the board. So here we are. We have Mary speaking Hebrew. Hebrew being written on the board above his crucifixion. Jesus himself speaking Hebrew. Them reading Hebrew. They're writing in Hebrew. But we're to believe that not a person in sight wrote a sentence about Jesus for 33 years. Here we have the Gospel of Mark. Here's where the stories begin. Gospel of Matthew, written 110 years after Jesus. When you look at the Gospel of Matthew, it's anywhere between 70 and 110. They can't even agree on the date. When you get into Matthew itself, Matthew 9:9, it says, and Jesus passed forth from there. He saw a man named Matthew. Whoever wrote this is talking about a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of customs, and he said unto him, follow me. So Matthew himself is not writing this. A man named Matthew, but it's 70 to 110 years after Jesus' birth. We have Mark again, 66, 74 AD. We have the Gospel of Luke, 80 to 110 AD. All of these are 110 AD, 70 AD. We have the Gospel of John. It took John, first-hand account eyewitness, 40 years to write about Jesus. You're walking and talking with the most miraculous man in the world. You don't say nothing about him for 40 years, 110 years after him. Right? Did you know there was 4 other Jesuses? Here's the problem that's going to happen with Malone. Even if he goes to try to prove that there was a man named Jesus, did you know there was 4 Jesuses in the Bible? So even if Vocab shows a supposed man that existed in biblical times named Jesus, it's not good enough. It must come from indigenous eyewitnesses describing the exact Jesus that fed 5,000 people and made hundreds of dead saints rise from the grave and walk through the holy city, as it says, seen by many. Being that they were saints, this means that they were well known, especially in the holy city. Here's your 3 Jesuses at the time. Jesus Barabbas, who is also called the Son of the Father, just like Jesus was. So we have Jesus Barabbas, who existed at the time. We have over here in Colossians 4:10 and 4:11, where it's talking about the prisoners and the people. It says, and the fellow workers in the kingdom of God from the circumcision. And there was a man named Jesus Justice. See that? Jesus, who is called Justice. That's not Jesus Christ. Then you have another Jesus here. When they had gone through the Isles of Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew by the name of Bar Jesus. So this was one, he was a man, this third one. He was a man who was a prophet. Ding, ding, ding. So even if people write about a prophet, he was a man that performed miracles. So here's a Jesus that did miracles.
2 minutes.
You'll call them false miracles if you don't believe in him, but you'll call them real miracles if you believe in them. Just like any magician. People see David Blaine, they call him a devil. If you believe him, they say he did some miracles or he did magic tricks. He is a Jew and his name was Jesus. So we have 3 Jesuses in the Bible mentioned as different types of Jesuses. One is called the Son of the Father. One is a Jew who did miracles and he was a prophet too. And his name was Jesus. So we need indigenous records. I always say my theme is to the people. I'm here to defend the indigenous people. I'm here to defend the indigenous people of any culture. If you're saying something about a culture, I don't want to hear what Greek and Roman writings said about them. I want to hear if the Aztecs said something about themselves, I want to see what they said about themselves. I don't want to hear what a Greek said. If a Kemetian said something about Osiris, Asar, I want to see it in the Metanetter and then translate it. I don't want to just hear something.
1 minute.
Right? So here we are again. We do not have any indigenous writings. We need to see an indigenous record of 5,000 men being fed and thousands of men resurrecting out of a grave going into a holy city. We need indigenous writings. We don't want to hear from these Greeks. We do not want to hear from Arabic writings from a Greek writer named Josephus who came after Jesus. Who did Jesus affect while he was alive? We need to see that. That is my rebuttal. Or that is actually the round, the first round. And the next round, we're going to get into where the stories of Jesus were created, which was actually 330 years before Jesus was born. And that was Serapis. We're going to get into the Ptolemies. We're going to get into where Jesus actually came from before there was a Jesus. Peace.
All right, family. Y'all, I told y'all, man. If y'all don't know who Tahuti is, I told you will get real acquainted with him. Tahuti is not the pushover. He is definitely a scholar in this thing. And I said Vocab is going to have his hands full. Vocab, you got 3 minutes to rebuttal. And then you can go right into your 10 minutes. Just let me know when you're ready. And you got 3 minutes to rebuttal.
All right, I'm ready. In that opening statement, we saw Tahuti's lack of knowledge about what he's talking about on full display. Your ignorance was on full display. Let me show you what I mean. Josephus, he says he wants to see Josephus, the Hebrew manuscript that Josephus wrote. Josephus didn't write in Hebrew, Tehuti. He wrote in Greek. And you say you want to have indigenous people. You'll accept those records. Yet you reject Josephus, who was a Hebrew. So do you accept Josephus, who wrote in Greek, not Hebrew, or do you not accept him? Make up your mind. And by the way, your criterion is simply your bigotry on display. Real historians don't say, this person has to have written the record. This person has to have written the record. They say, what's accurate? What is provable? What is evidential? There's a whole study, a field called historiography, and no one does it the way you're doing it, because that's not the way a scholar would approach the issue. And that's why you don't know anything of what you're talking about. You didn't know Josephus's language he wrote in. You didn't know that 0 AD is not a real date. It goes 1 BC, 1 AD. You literally said 0 AD in your opening statement. 0 is not a date. It's 1 BC, 1 year before Christ, and then 1 AD in the year of our Lord when he's born. There is no 0. How can someone who claims to be a master teacher, who gets paid for this, not know 0 AD is not a date? You're a magician. I guess you are, because you make people's money disappear for tricks. He says, I don't want to hear the racism about Hebrews, that they didn't know how to read or write Hebrew. Nobody said that. What are you talking about? I never said that. Why are you saying that? Jesus went into the synagogue in Luke 4 and he read from the scroll in Hebrew. Nobody said the Hebrews couldn't read any Hebrew or write any Hebrew. You do want to know who did forget their language, though? The Kemets. You're the one who forgot. You had to rely on Napoleon Bonaparte to know how to speak again. And some French translators talking about this. You're the one who had to rely on Europeans for your history, Plutarch. Come on now. This is some of the worst display I've ever seen on this channel. We've seen a lot of bad stuff. This man says, I want post-Jesus, yet rejects the New Testament. And he says, well, Josephus is in Arabic. Sometimes translations preserve an older copy of the text. Everyone knows that. In fact, Aristotle's preserved a lot in Arabic. And something you like to talk about a lot, the Septuagint, is a perfect example. Elements of the Septuagint preserve different readings from the Hebrew text. You have a lot of work to do, and no magic trick is going to help you in this.
Oh my God. Wow. I told y'all this is going to be great. Powerful comeback with Vocab Malone. Hey, brother, you got 10 minutes in this round, Vocab. The time will start when you start, brother. This is crazy right here. I hope y'all getting all this in. And please write down your questions, because when we open up the questions, nobody going to be able to teach. Just ask a question so everybody can get their questions answered. Vocab, you got 10 minutes in this round.
All right. I'm glad that Tehuti says he wants eyewitness testimony for the deeds of Jesus and the words of Jesus. Because Tehuti, I'm here to grant your wishes. Luke 1 through 4. Luke specifically says that he interviewed eyewitnesses. He specifically says, I interviewed eyewitnesses. And there's multiple places in Luke where it says Mary treasured these things in her heart. Other gospel writers don't have that. How would he know that? Mary is one of the people he interviewed. John 1935, John 21, 20 through 25 speaks of an eyewitness who is himself, just like Luke 1, 1 through 4 does as well. It's the prologue to Luke, written in high classical Greek, showing his education. As well as John says, I was here, I saw these things. He repeats that in 1 John 1, 1 through 4. We saw, we touched, he says. We heard, he says. Eyewitnesses. Acts 1, one of the qualifications to replace Judas was they had to have been there from the beginning as an eyewitness and see everything. Acts 1, 21 through 26. 2 Peter 1 through 16 says we didn't follow after myths and fables like, you know, those that you believe. He says we were eyewitnesses. Epoptai, which means watchers. We were eyewitnesses to his majesty, these things. You have similar testimony in 1 Corinthians 9:1 and 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul talks about speaking to eyewitnesses as well, including James, who is Jesus' brother. You don't have a brother if you're not a flesh and blood being. And even Josephus mentions James. If you don't want to accept the TF, you're in the minority. But you have to look to the other reference in Josephus about Jesus. It's when he recounts James. He recounts James in greater detail than he does Jesus. And as he recounts him, he says he's the brother of the one called the Christ. In Greek, it could be seen as so-called Christ because Josephus does not believe he was the Christ. But that reference about James to about Jesus in a part of where Josephus is talking about James is also evidence that he's already written about Jesus, because otherwise the offhand reference doesn't make sense unless he's described who this person is. And no one thinks that that one is an interpolation. So you have massive issues where you have early New Testament data corroborated by the historian of the area, Josephus. Galatians 1, Paul talks about speaking to James, speaking to Peter. And you have to remember, every account we have of these folks is that they were martyred for their beliefs. The exceptions, you could say, would be Judas, of course, who committed suicide, kind of like you're doing here tonight. And then, of course, who else? John. He died of an old age in Ephesus. All the evidence is that they died. Now, people will die for a lie, but not willingly die for a lie. They're dying proclaiming the resurrection of Jesus willingly by Roman authorities and mobs. You don't do that for a mythical being, some cosmic figure who's a ripoff of paganism. You simply don't do that. That's why the evidence for Jesus is incredibly strong. It's not even a debatable point. There's some stories to say we know more about Jesus than we do any other person in the first century. Now, if we go back and look at examples, I'm going to give some more examples. I want you to see this. I'm going to give Suetonius as well. Let's see what Suetonius says. These are quick and brief, but nonetheless important, because you have historian after historian, and they're not, what we would call friendly, that are confirming who Jesus was. So here we go with this one. Can you guys see this? Is it doing it right? Sonetta, do you see it?
It's up and running.
All right, Suetonius, writing 69 to 140, The Lives of the 12 Caesars. And you can see on the right-hand side a copy from 1540. In one section, and I have it listed on the screen, he says, since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Chrestus, he expelled them from Rome. That happened in 49 AD when he's writing this. So within 15 years or so of Jesus' death, depending on when you date it, you have already issues that are being blamed upon Jesus' followers in Rome. And guess what? That corresponds to something that Luke, an excellent historian, wrote in the book of Acts when he talks about a Jewish couple who had been expelled from Rome because the emperor kicked out the Jews at that time. And then you have it confirmed here. Lives of the Caesar, and there's another section here regarding Nero. So this is about the 60s as far as the part that it's talking about. Punishment was inflicted on the Christians, a class of men given to a new and mischievous superstition. Tehuti, do you notice something here? Anytime the pagans of the area, the pagans of the time spoke about Christians, they always viewed it as something new. They viewed it as something they hadn't seen before. These are the educated class of the folks that are essentially in charge. They recognize it's new. But why do you think you know better? This is a problem because what you have is a situation that really Tehuti claims to follow ancient ways, but he's essentially exposing himself as a modern man. Let me explain what I mean by that. He is giving primacy to cultures that traffic in writing. He is giving primacy to written records and written documents, not understanding that in oral cultures such as the Hebrews, they prized living eyewitnesses. That is what the prize was to them, someone who was there that they could talk to. So if you want to know why the New Testament documents were written when they were written, simply do the math. And what the math will show you, it's all written at the time when these folks, as far as the later stages of the New Testament, would be about to no longer be around, meaning it's written within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, and they realize we better write this down because the eyewitnesses are dying. And let me show you, this is receipt after receipt. I hope people appreciate the way ancient historians do history and all the receipts I've been given. All Tehuti's done is use my PowerPoint and show you some pictures. Check this out, what Papias said in regards to the New Testament and the eyewitnesses. The elder also said this, and this is Papias, who was talking to John the elder, the author of John. Look what he says here. He's quoting John. The elder also said this, Mark being the interpreter of Peter, whatsoever he remembered, he wrote accurately, but not, however, in the order that these things were spoken or done by a Lord, saying it's an account not necessarily in chronological order. For he neither heard the Lord nor followed him. Now, the reason why I point that out there in this quote by Papias is to show the early Christians were not into making up stories that say this guy was an eyewitness. Here they are explicitly saying, well, Mark wasn't one of the disciples. They didn't need to make up an eyewitness if the person wasn't an eyewitness to all the events, although it seems certain that Mark was an eyewitness to some events as a young man, but not all of them. Papias is saying he wasn't an eyewitness, but yet he was with Peter. And that's why scholars have always recognized in the Gospel of Mark, what they call Petrine inclusio. That means it begins and ends with a reference directly to him. It's a way to nod to your eyewitnesses. These are things that if you know the literature of the time and how they do what are called bios, which basically means bios, you'll see, oh, that's what they're doing. They didn't do things the way we do. We can't put our 21st century misunderstandings on top of them. Let me continue on here with what he said. As I said, he was with Peter, who did not make a complete or ordered account of the Lord's logia, that means sayings, but constructed his teachings according to the Kyria, that means the self-contained teachings. So Mark did nothing wrong in writing down single matters as he remembered them, for he gave special attention to one thing, of not passing by anything he heard, and by not falsifying anything in these matters. And then he also said, concerning Matthew, these other things were said. Therefore, Matthew set in order the logia in a Hebrew dialect, and each interpreted them as he was able. So according to Papias, Matthew even originally wrote in Hebrew. Now, if he's a tax collector, the way you could picture that is him having the tablets that tax collectors carried at the time, writing in his native tongue of Hebrew and later putting it into Greek for a broader audience. This is not something that is hard to imagine, hard to believe, and I don't know why when he says he wants things that are written by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of Jesus. Well, the completed documents are within the generation, but they're working on these while he's alive in many cases. The completed document we have, and they're by the indigenous peoples. Why would we reject them? Because if he accepts the New Testament documents and lets them stand as he should, then what happens is he has to recognize that his theory is wrong, that obviously Jesus existed. And so this is important to understand Papias and who he was and his understanding that, look, what I wanted to do is to talk directly to these people. Look what Papias says about gathering information. I will not hesitate to add also for you to my interpretations what I formerly learned with care from the presbyters and have carefully stored in memory, giving assurance of its truth. For I did not take pleasure, as the many do, in those who speak much, but in those who teach what is true, nor in those who relate foreign precepts, but in those who relate precepts which were given by the Lord to the faith and came down from the truth of itself. And Also, if any follower of the presbyters happened to come, I would inquire of the sayings of the presbyters, what Andrew said, or what Peter said, or what Philip, or what Thomas, or James, or what John, or what Matthew, or any other of the Lord's disciples, and for the things which other of the Lord's disciples, and for the things which Ariston and the presbyter John, the disciples of the Lord, were saying. Last thing, for I consider that I should not get so much advantage from matter and books as from the voice which yet lives and remains.
Time. All right, man. Let's go right into the rebuttal round for Brother Tahuti. You got 3 minutes in this round, and then you can proceed on into your 10-minute round. You got 3 minutes, Tahuti. Unmute yourself.
Okay, peace, everyone. Can you hear me, Saw? Okay. So again, you cannot use the books itself to prove itself. So you can't, when I ask for eyewitnesses from Hebrews, of which there should be thousands of eyewitnesses who could read and write Hebrew, you can't go back to the book of Luke. You can't go back to the book of 1 Peter. But if you decide to do that, it's going to get bad for you. And here's why. Because my premise, again, I'm requesting eyewitness accounts from the indigenous culture that this man Jesus was sent to. He's sent to a culture. He wasn't sent to Chinese people. The prophecies of the so-called Jesus are coming from one particular culture and one culture only, supposedly, and that's the Hebrew culture. So that's when he finally arrived, since they all wrote about him for thousands of years. They wrote about him for thousands of years. When he finally arrives, they wouldn't stop writing about him. Imagine that. Imagine writing about prophecies of a Jesus for thousands of years. Each prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet, all the way up to the book of Malachi. He finally comes and everybody says, okay, now he's here, stop writing. That is completely illogical. He referred to the book of 1 Peter. Another rookie mistake, but it's okay though. We'll walk through it. Let me go to let's go to the book of 1 Peter and look at the date of that. Let's see if 1 Peter is this eyewitness account that he is speaking of, that he's referring to. Here's 1 Peter. Okay, if everybody can see the screen. 1 Peter, the authorship, when we go look up 1 Peter, which I have circled, I have rectangled in red. It says 1 Peter was most likely written during the reign of Domitian in 81 AD, 81 years after Jesus again. Wow. 81 years. The dates are getting worse. Okay? So he's talking about 1 Peter as an eyewitness account, but 1 Peter again is falling into the bad premise. The premise is that we are to believe what Greek writers, Greek authors, and every other culture is writing. Because nobody's ever seen these people, but every other culture is writing in their languages about a story, but nothing is coming from the indigenous people themselves. So no, 1 Peter is not any kind of eyewitness. Again, the book of 1 Peter is 81 AD. What is happening is what happens in most of my debates is the person, let me get back to the screen. The person ends up attacking me personally as opposed to attacking the information, which is what's happening here. Okay, but no, you can't use 1 Peter and you can't use Luke. They're all 70 to 81 years after Jesus. I'm looking for indigenous.
All right, you got 10 minutes in the second round.
I'll tell you when to start, so let me let me get booted up. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to cover this in 10. Okay, let's do our best. Let's do our best. Okay. Let me see if I can screen share. Here, share. Boom. I'm now going to discuss the origins of where this Jesus story actually came from and why it became repeated over the years by these Greeks and Romans. Am I screen sharing yet?
Not yet. It's coming up. It's rolling. It's going around.
It's scrolling around. Tell me when you can see and you can start.
Okay.
You see something?
Yeah, I see it going around. It ain't queued up yet. You probably want to stop it and do it again.
Let me try that. Okay. I'll go share again. Share screen. And Share. How about now?
All right, it's up and running now.
Okay, good. Here's where the prophecies of Jesus come from.
Yeah, time start now.
Okay, good. Prophecies of Jesus come from all of these books here: Genesis, Micah, Isaiah, Numbers, Psalms. It keeps going on. All of these here are the prophecies that they say Jesus is fulfilling. But in order for there to be a Jesus, there has to be a valid Old Testament or ancient scrolls that date back to the scribes or prophets that supposedly wrote of them. What makes Jesus a special character is that he supposedly fulfilled ancient prophecies recorded in the books of ancient Hebrews. But what is the source of these books, and who do they trace back to? Whoever these books trace to are the ones that created the prophecy. So in order to have a Jesus, he has to fulfill a prophecy. But what if the prophecies themselves were created? It all goes back to the book that he mentioned, and I mentioned as well, the Septuagint. Right? The Septuagint and the so-called supposed story that there's some Hebrew Bible that was translated by 72 Jews, of which no Jew has a record of. And this can only be found in one Greek letter called the letter of Aristes, which has proven to have all types of faults in it. So it goes back to this Greek writing called the Septuagint. Here is what is said, and I have here the actual book, picture of the book of Aristes. Not even in the story of the Ptolemies, it's just translated. The books of Moses, there's no original writings of any of these Jesus prophecies. All of these prophecies, again, I need to see original Hebrew writing of these prophecies. They can only be traced back to the Ptolemies and the Septuagint. But when you go back to the story of the translation, in the story it says he entered each room and said, "Write for me the Torah of Moshe your teacher." Not every single book in the Bible, write for me the Torah. But again, all these prophecies are coming from Septuagint origins. Okay, now we're going to go to the Biblical Research Association of Biblical Research, Shiloh Excavations, where they say the very first translation of the Hebrew Bible made into Greek probably in the 3rd century BC, because this is who created it, the Ptolemies and Alexander and his people. Okay, the Bible into Greek traditionally dated in the reign of Ptolemy II. Ptolemy II, according to the tradition, account of his origin preserved in the so-called letter of Aristes, right, of Ptolemy II, who commissioned it. According to the letter of Aristes, the translation made under the Demetrius, which was completed in 72 days. They keep quoting the 72 number because that's the number of Tehuti. It was no such actual event of any translation. That's why there's no Hebrew record of it. It's difficult. Now, the same biblical believing archaeological website says it's difficult to know how much credence to give these accounts. There are several known historical errors in the letter of Aristes. So even they are saying in the story, in his source, there's several errors in it. Now, here is the Ptolemies according to their actual beliefs. Okay, this is the Rosetta Stone, which the Rosetta Stone is a declaration of the beliefs of the Ptolemies themselves. I have the most important parts in red and outlined because I only have 10 minutes. So it says here, first we say this is the fourth day, which is equivalent to the Egyptian month, 2nd month of Peret. Okay, this is the inauguration of this king, Ptolemy. First, it begins talking about Lord of the Area. This is what the Ptolemies believed in. They didn't believe in any Hebrew books. Here's what the Ptolemies believed in. Lord of the Area. Down here it says, Ptah Tutenen, Father, loving God, whom Ptah has chosen, living image of Amun. That's why you have Amun at the end of your prayers. Son of Peri, Ptolemy, beloved of Ptah, not the beloved of Yahweh, the beloved of Ptah. He's the manifest God. Okay, priest of Alexander, the savior gods. That the Netir were the savior gods. Here's what the Ptolemies were talking about. Okay? Then it goes on to say in red, I just have to go fast because we only have 10 minutes. Scribes of the divine book. What was this divine book that they had? Beloved of Ptah, the manifest God, son of King Ptolemy and Queen Arsinoe. He being a god and the son of God and a goddess, being like Horus, Isis and Osiris. Here's where your trinity comes from. His father Osiris, in order to create peace in Egypt and to establish temples. And then it goes on to say, Thoth, twice great. Here is everything mentioned, or most of what's mentioned in this decree of the Ptolemies, which is supposed to be the origin of the Old Testament. Here is his wife in the Met Museum going back to 278 BC. Here is the Aurea right here on her head. These people were worshiping Kemetic culture. Ptolemy's wife Arsinoe wearing the Aurea, the symbol of resurrection, everlasting life. This is where your Jesus concept comes from. Then you have in the Met Museum the goddess of Isis and her son Horus, the son of God. And then you have down here, this is Osiris in the British Museum EA 22814. This is Ptah Sakar Osiris, who was the resurrection deity. This is the origins of where your Ptolemies created the savior god coming from Kemetic gods. Who is this, though, that I've been showing a picture of? If you look at this image here, who is this? Who is this ever so recognizable sad-eyed savior with a crown of plants around his head, with long brown hair, nose, and of course even down to the red blood and bruises on his face that we all grew to love? Jesus, right? No. This is the creation of guess who by? The same Ptolemies who put out the first Bible 300 years before he had the name Jesus. This was Christ Serapis from Asar and Apis Ptah, the resurrected one who gives life. You see the similarities there? See that? This is your first Christ, way before the Christ concept was invented or created. This is Serapis coming from the complete gods and goddesses. He is a resurrection God. He is a God that gives everlasting life. He fits all the attributes that were given to us about this Jesus character. And it says invented, created, and put together by the Ptolemies. The Ptolemies are the ones that put this Serapis together. Okay. All right. And I want to play this here. And I hope you guys can hear this. Because this goes all the way back to the Ptolemies, but it continues on past the Jesus story all the way into the Romans, into 134 AD. And I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm going to play this as loud as I can. I'm going to put open with VLC. That should play loud.
Osiris had a counterpart god known as Ptah. And when these two gods were combined, they created an all-powerful God. That would be worshipped all the way from Egypt to Rome. In 117 AD, Emperor Hadrian was ruling Rome. At his villa in Tivoli, Hadrian had an Egyptian serapeum created. This space was dedicated to Osiris, Apis, and Ptah. These Egyptian statues made with a Roman flair, such as the staff of Ptah with a rooster. Serapis was the combination of Ptah, Osiris, and Apis bull. When Hadrian's lover Antinous died, he was named Osiris Antinous, connecting him with Serapis. The worship of Serapis and the Apis bull have long-standing roots in ancient Egypt. The Serapeum of Hadrian and Antinous is a beautiful combination of Roman and Egyptian art and religion.
So there we have Serapis and Hadrian, who goes all the way into Rome, and we have the letter that was given to Hadrian, and guess what this letter says? I'm going to blow up this letter here. You can find this in the web.
1 minute.
Classical Library, if I have time to read this one letter. It says, from Hadrian Augustus Servanus, greetings, the land of Egypt, praises which have been recounted to me. And then it goes on to say, though those who worship Serapis are in fact Christians. Can you see that? The followers of Serapis were Christians, and those who call themselves bishops of Christ are in fact devotees of Serapis. There's no chief of the Jewish synagogue, no Samaritan, no Christian presbyter, astrologer. Egypt is forced by some to worship Serapis. This Serapis was the first Christ, way before the Christ that we're talking about today was created, and that is also where the image comes from So this is who created it. The same people that put out the prophecies. And that's why we can't find any indigenous prophecies in any indigenous language, because this was actually created, and they carried it on from 332 all the way past into 134 AD, past the Jesus time. People were called Christians and bishops of Christ, and those were followers of Serapis. Okay, let me get back to the screen. Okay. Peace.
All right, family. Vocab. You got 3 minutes to rebuttal. And then you can proceed on into your last round, which is the third round, y'all.
Third round, all right.
Third round is coming up. You got 3 minutes in this round to rebuttal.
I'm going to share my screen here.
I see it. It's up.
All right, let me... All right. Shout out to...
I'm going to start.
All right, thanks. Shout out to MJ and some of the other brothers who helped me with some of these slides. I appreciate that, y'all. Notice here that Tehuti never touches the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are important for a lot of reasons. One is that it shows that people who knew Hebrew as well could also write in Greek, because amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have mainly Hebrew, but we have some Greek writings there as well. Now, in regards to the Gospels themselves, they're established because they are being quoted by early Christians already in the 1st and 2nd centuries. For example, we have Clement of Rome who quotes from Matthew. So the date that Tehuti gave for Matthew could not be correct, because you have Clement writing prior to the date Tehuti gave for Matthew. That's a major problem. Now, I don't know why we're starting to go to another place with this, but I'm going to follow to show that he's also wrong about these issues as well. And one other thing that's important to bring up, when you talk about the Old Testament, the oldest text is not the Septuagint. It's the Ketiphanan Philatories, Phylatories. Those are even older. Look those up, Ketefhinnon. So there's all kinds of problems with this thesis, including the idea that, look, Jesus came from Serapis because both of them have a beard. A lot of Hebrews in the 1st century had beards. I don't understand this. Seriously, this is really the kind of arguments that we're making. Serapis was basically like a cow deity, Osiris Apis, and it's sort of given a Hellenistic facelift. Ptah is not a counterpart to Osiris. The two were merged into some kind of composite god. It's not two persons in one god, but it's two gods declared to be the same god. So we have all kinds of incredible problems, even when he goes to his own sources. I think that's important to understand. And some of the texts he quoted from were those used to make fun of Christians. They were parodies. All kinds of problems here in what is going on. Now, as I look to the screen, I want to show another with this general assertion that he made very quickly without really giving any evidence. The idea that Jesus is really Osiris and Horus, for example. You commonly see it this way. Horus was conceived by a virgin. Osiris was killed and resurrected. Let's look at that in detail. Here we have a hymn to Osiris preserved. See that right there? And you got the dates. And I want to read now from that. This is a sort of a summary from it. And listen to this and tell me if this is really anything to do with Jesus. This is from Stephen E. Thompson in Ancient Egypt Facts and Fictions. Isis the effective, the protector of her brother, who looked for him without ceasing, who traveled this land in mourning. She would not rest before she found him. She made a shadow with her feathers, creating a breeze with her wings, offering praise when her brother moored. She is the one who lifted up the lethargy of the weary-hearted, who received his semen, which created the air, who suckled the child in solitude. His location was unknown, who revealed him in the court of Geb when he had grown strong. The Ennead rejoices. Welcome, Osiris' son Horus, stout-hearted, true of voice, son of Isis, heir of Osiris. Does this really have anything to do with Jesus? Okay, so that's the beginning rebuttal, and now I go on with my 10 minutes?
Yes, you can go on. Right. Keep it going.
Let's look deeper at these assertions that Jesus is basically a knockoff on these other gods. I want to draw everyone's attention, though, to the fact that never did Tehuti accurately or adequately deal with the sources I brought up? He didn't understand that I gave him exactly what he was asking for, as well as secular sources who understand what I'm saying. Yet Tehuti refuses. He's not really listening. This could have been a time for him to understand some more things, but he's not into that. He just likes to declare himself champion. And I wasn't attacking him. I attacked his grasp or lack thereof on the information. That's what I went after when I was talking about 0 AD. And he should apologize. He should be embarrassed for making a mistake like that. That means he doesn't really know the information at all. Now look at the pregnancy of Isis. This is from the coffin spell 148. Watch this. After the blast of a meteorite, such that even the gods fear Isis awoke, pregnant by the seed of her brother Osiris. So first of all, these Egyptian gods have incest. So you've got... it's so insane to me that someone says this is the story of Jesus, right? Well, I woke up, I'm pregnant by my brother Osiris. Thus the woman, who's also my husband, and who I'm going to have sex with later. So you have a situation of incestual necrophilia. Thus the woman raised herself abruptly, her heart pleased with the seed of her brother Osiris. So she likes it. She's into this. Maybe if they were from the part that's akin to West Virginia there in Egypt. Now, look at this. As for Horus, he also had no virgin birth. Isis had sex with Osiris after reassembling his body parts, which were torn apart and scattered over Egypt. As Egyptologist and professor at the University of Arizona, Dr. Richard Wilkinson has written, through her magic, Isis revivified the sexual member of Osiris and became pregnant by him, eventually giving birth to their child Horus. What does this have to do with Christianity? Nothing at all. Nothing at all. This is ancestral necrophilia, and we're supposed to believe that this has something to do with Christianity. And in fact, it's bestiality, because wasn't she in the form of a bird when she did this? This is ancestral bestial necrophilia. What does this have to do with Christianity? Nothing. Historian and Professor Francois Denon writes, after having sexual intercourse in the form of a bird, so it's incestual, it's incestual, it's necrophilia because he's dead, and since she's in the form of a bird, it's bestiality. This is what the story of Jesus is based upon. With a dead God she restored to life. She gave birth to a posthumous son, Horus. Now, this is what he expects us to believe. Notice he never really tries to prove it. He never tries to prove it. Let me look at everybody and get something here. Check this out. You can't just say, here's a parallel, therefore they're the same. You have to do some work. You have to do some work. You can't say, look, these things are similar, therefore one ripped off of the other. That's not how historians work. That's not how things work in general. That's an error of assuming causation and all kinds of other things with terminological fallacies. You need to show the cults of Horus being influential in Israel, in first century Israel. You need to show us where these religious texts have been translated in Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic for the Hebrews to read so they can rip them off. You need to show the Hebrews traveling to Egypt, studying the walls, which I guess they learned how to read somehow, the glyphs, even though most Egyptians, did the Egyptians even know at this time? Few, right? Studying the walls, learning the glyphs, and then coming back with a rip-off religion. You need to explain the distribution mechanism. How did this actually happen? That first century monotheistic Jews who constantly were rebelling against the pagan Romans. How is it that now they all of a sudden are going to ancient Egypt, which wasn't even the most powerful kingdom at the time? What's the mechanism? Are there lodges in Israel that you could show us? Can you show us some of your lodges, perhaps? Do you have accounts of Hebrews going to Egypt, you have nothing. All you have is conjecture and zeitgeist, and that doesn't cut it in academic circles, including this next theory about Horus dying and rising. Let's show this as well. And just because I'm being forward, that doesn't mean it's a personal attack. I'm attacking your information. This is a direct attack on your information. And I think you know the difference. Let's look and see if the similarities are really like what people say. So we're going to get into this text here, and it's from some object known as a sippus, which was intended to provide protection for Egyptians from snakes, scorpions, crocodiles, and other dangerous animals, provide relief to those who were stung or bitten by snakes or scorpions. And here's the god Horus as a new child. So, by the way, not only do we have incest in ancient Egypt, not only do we have bestiality in ancient Egypt, not only do we have necrophilia in ancient Egypt, but apparently you have child porn because you like to depict young children naked. This has nothing to do with Jesus. Asipus depicted the god Horus as a new child standing on the backs of crocodiles and clutching dangerous animals in each hand. Now, watch this. In order to benefit from the healing power of the text, a person had to either touch the stela or drink water that had been poured over the hieroglyphic texts. Probably not the most sanitary thing to do, that latter option, right? And how superstitious is this? Touch the stela is going to help you out. Sippy could be set up in basins designed to catch the water poured over them. I guess it's literally a sippy cup. A woman came to me. This is the account. Famous in her town, a noble lady, foremost in her district. She came to me carrying life. Her heart was confident on account of her skill. She said, fear not, child Horus. Don't be downcast, mother of a god. The child is safe from the evil of his brother. The bush is hidden, death cannot enter it. The magic of Atum, the father of the gods who was in heaven, is the one who made life. Seth cannot enter this district. He cannot travel about within Kemet. Horus is safe from the evil of his brother, and his followers cannot harm him. Seek the course of this poison throughout him so that Horus may live for his mother. Perhaps a scorpion has stung him or a greedy snake has bitten him. He didn't even really die, so it's not a resurrection is the point of this. It's some kind of revivification via magic spell so Egyptians could imitate this. This is Egyptian medicine in this case. Shout out to BK Apologist for some of these slides, by the way. He transcribed this, did a lot of work as far as that goes. Isis placed her nose in his mouth, gross, to learn the odor thereof from with his body. She identified the suffering of the divine heir. She found him to be under the influence of poison. She embraced him quickly. She jumped around him like fish do when thrown into a frying pan. Horus has been bitten, O Ray. Your son has been bitten. Horus has been bitten. The minor child howled from worry. Those around the child were speechless. Nephthys came to him weeping. Her shriek pervaded the delta marshes. Selka said, what is it? What is wrong with the child Horus? Isis, call out to heaven so that the crew of Ray will stop. The bark of Ray will not travel while the child Horus is on his side. Isis sent forth her voice to heaven. He cries to the bark of millions. The sun disk halted in her presence. It did not move from its place. Thoth arrived, equipped with his magic power, bearing the great command of justification. What is it? What is it? Divine and effective Isis, who knows her spell? This is like Egyptian CPR, I guess. There is no harm to your son, Horus. His protection is the bark of Ray. Today I have arrived in the divine boat, while the sun disk is in its place of yesterday. While darkness has come into existence and light has been driven away until Horus is healed from his mother Isis, I am Thoth, the eldest, the son of Ray, whom Atum, father of the god, commanded to heal Horus for his mother Isis, and to heal and suffer likewise. Now, the point by this is to show this is not a resurrection, but this is the kind of stuff that gets compared all the time to Jesus. When you actually dig in and find out what's being talked about, it's not a resurrection. Now, notice, not only am I reading my sources, I'm showing from the New Testament data that is incredibly early. 45 AD is when the New Testament documents begin being pumped out, and it doesn't stop until 90. I don't know why he said they stopped writing. No one stopped writing. They were writing immediately. But again, he thinks as a 21st century modern Western man, and he's thinking that people in an oral culture who prized eyewitness of testimony, which makes perfect sense, by the way, why wouldn't you, didn't want to write down the accounts. They wanted to talk to the people. But when the eyewitness's life was going to expire, then they started writing the accounts down. And he wants to tell us that none of that's valid. Josephus isn't valid. Tacitus is valid because he thinks he had too much of a Roman nose or something. He never really explained why Tacitus wasn't valid. He never explained why Suetonius wasn't valid. And he wants us to believe we should trust this instead. He doesn't even know who wrote these things. Just apparently some Egyptian, he guesses. He hasn't showed a distribution mechanism for how Israelites were influenced by these ancient pagan religions that they fought so hard to reject. He has showed us none of these things. So the confidence you have is supremely misplaced. And I just want to remind you again, you really said in this debate 0 AD. This is what I'm saying. There's an extreme lack of awareness of what you're talking about, frankly. And it's not going to fly. It's not going to work. And this is the ending question I want to ask you as I end. Who are the first century scholars or scholars of the first century that you read? Who are your historians that you like to read? Who are the New Testament or Old Testament scholars? They can be believers or unbelievers. Who do you read to understand this? Because you don't read Hebrew and Greek. I understand that. Okay, so we read people who, scholars of the field. Who do you read? I don't think you read any.
Time. All right, brother Tahuti, cue it up. Cue it up. It's on you. You got 3 minutes in the rebuttal on this round. It's on you. This is your last and final round before we get to the questions. You will be able, vocab, get your stuff ready. You will be able to ask Tahuti 2 questions, and Tahuti will be able to ask you 2 questions, and then we open up the floor. It's on you, Tahuti. You got 3 minutes on the rebuttal. Unmute yourself.
Wonderful. Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me? Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for basing your third round on an actual 10-minute rebuttal. So your third round was based on what I set up, and you couldn't hold your rebuttal for 3 minutes. You had to extend it to the whole, take up your whole round. So thank you for that, because that's exactly what I wanted you to do. Because my third round is actually the answer to all the questions you asked, which was, what is the link between the people of the time and the Kemetic culture? What are the sources? What are the exact stories that are similar? And unfortunately, brother, you keep saying that it's not too late. The stories are not too late. Yes, they are. 45 AD, 60 AD, 70 AD, 110 AD is way too late when you're talking about people that were waiting for a Messiah to come for thousands of years, and you're telling us that they waited 65 years to speak on it. I said that they were silent. You have not, and you have not disproved that. You have not disproved that there's any Hebrew writing. You are not addressing, again, that the Hebrews could read and write their language. Jesus spoke, according to the story, Jesus spoke Hebrew, Mary spoke Hebrew, Paul was speaking Hebrew, disciples and people of the time were speaking Hebrew. They wrote Hebrew on the top of his cross so that the people by the thousands could read it. So where is the Hebrew writing of the people that Jesus affected? And I'm going to keep on focusing on that, because I don't want to go to Tiberius and Julius Caesar and all of these Romans. I don't want to go to them. I want to stick with, where is the indigenous Hebrew culture writing about their expected Messiah? My third round is going to actually put the nail in the coffin and show you the exact copies of where the stories came from. So we're going to save everything for the third round in our question section. But thank you for basing your third round on my last round. Thank you. So let's just get right into the round, because I want to answer and show all of the questions. Okay. Peace on that section. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to relinquish that.
You can go right into your third round.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Okay. All right. Now it gets. Okay. Let's go to share screen. Tell me when I'm sharing screen, saw.
He's just strolling around again. Go out, come back in.
Okay. Let me stop. Let me see if I can put it first. Okay. Telling me now.
You gotta go out. Yeah, come back.
Okay. Well, and I'm back. And how's
you
it?
up and running.
I'm up and running. Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. So let's get into it. So first, we're going to establish the known supposed unique attributes.
Now.
Thank you. The known supposed unique attributes of Jesus that make him special. He's the Lamb of God. He's the anointed Messiah. He is God, the Son of God. He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. These are some of the many things. I only have a 10-minute time period, so we can't get into all of the attributes, but these are some of the things that make Jesus some special. Now, did the Ptolemies have access to the Egyptian writings even in the ADs up throughout the Christian time? Absolutely yes. This is the Book of the Dead of the Ptolemaic period from the 4th century to the 1st century BC. This is in the Oriental Institute Museum, University of Chicago. So this is their Book of the Dead. The Ptolemies had the Book of the Dead. They had this to copy from. And we're going to go through what exactly was copied. Now let's look at this. This is Luke 1:31. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son. Thou shalt call his name Jesus. Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, whom was born Jesus, called the Christ. So he was perceived to be born beforehand, to be conceived, and he was also the Christ. Okay? And of course, people are familiar with this image right here. It's the image that's been behind me the whole time. Here is, in the exhibit of California Science Museum, the Golden Horse, called the Bach, 1332 BCE. This is the Golden Horse, the resurrected Heru. Here is the original Book of the Dead, right? This is going to be plate 16, page 158, and this is plate 16. It goes on to say, the shining being who came into existence, even I arose in the form of the Bach, the divine, right, and made me worthy of Horus. What does Bach mean? Bach is to give birth to. Speaking of the story, because they tied his name into the story of Aset. So it dealt with Aset giving birth to. It also meant to be with child. Speaking of the prophecy of Tehuti to Aset, that she would be with child and she should go hide with the child. So Bach also meant to be with child, to be pregnant. And what is the last meaning of Bach? Of Heru's name? The anointed one. You see that? The anointed one. They literally took these stories to make the Christian stories. Of course, they're not going to be word for word, because that is not how it goes. You don't make things word for word. They're taking the concepts. The Book of Revelations of Jesus is 110 AD, 1,300 years after the Book of the Dead, which the Ptolemies had their own copy, lifted the son of Mary, Aset's title. Book of the Dead, once again, here's the Ptolemies Book of the Dead, and then we get into Revelations 19:16. On his robe and his thigh is Jesus' name, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Here is plate 2 of 1250 BC, Book of the Dead. And we go to plate 2, page 10. And what does it say here at the bottom? What is his name? Homage to thee, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. They're literally taking these titles word for word and giving them and attributing them to new beings, such as Jesus. Okay, we'll go to the, if I have time, we go to Jesus being called the Lamb. Okay, this is the Neter Ram, which is also Osiris, and it was also Amen. So the sons of the Lamb, of the Ram, would be called the Lamb, or they would be called the Lamb of God, the Lamb of the Neter. Okay. Here we have the symbolism of holding the goat or lamb beside was the connection to the Ba of Djed or Mene Djed, which became the warped Greeks into the Mendes, which was just Asar. Asar and Amun. Do these images look familiar? Of course they do, because they were taken to create the common Jesus images that we have today. Here is him called the Lamb of God, and the Lamb in Kemet was the son of Amen. And that's why when you go to John 1:29, when he declares he's the Lamb of God, when you go into the language right here and you look up the word lamb right here, you see the word lamb is aminos, from the word ammon. That is the word lamb, because he's the baby sheep. He's the baby ram. So of course the baby lamb would be like his father, which was Ammon, and he was Ammonus, because the Greeks do add s's to the end of Kemetic words. That's why you have Osar, and then you have Osiris. And here's the image right here. Okay, we're going to continue on. Continue on here. We have King of Kings. We already did that one. Okay, and we're going to go to plagiarized claim. Jesus is God and the Son of God. because the Jews answered him, this is from 110 AD or 70 AD to 110 AD, answered and said, because you being a man makest yourself a god. So they heard that Jesus was calling himself a god. People call Jesus God and the Son of God, because it says here, behold, they cried out, what have we to do with thee, Jesus, Son of God? So he's God, the Son of God. Here is the same stela that he showed, the magical stela right here, the stela of Heru from Nektembu, who was the last native Kemetic pharaoh from 360 to 344 BC. And this can be found in Legends of the Gods. Legends of the Gods, where it says, homage to thee, God, Son of God. Here it's at Nektembu. He had noticed certain inscriptions that he thought were interesting and ordered them to be copied into a large block of stone. There the stela was created and stood for many years until who? Alexander the Great conquered the Persians in Egypt, and it was brought to Alexandria. So Alexander and the Ptolemies had this stela, and they started copying from it because they loved Kemet, but they warped Kemet. Okay? And last but not least, we have here the book of Matthew. Jacob and his father. Who is the father of Jesus and the mother of Jesus on earth? Joseph and Mary, according to Matthew 1:16. Joseph, and there is Mary, right? But the Hebrew pronunciation of Joseph wouldn't be Joseph because there was no J until on 1565. It would be Yusuf, as in our good brother R.I.P. Yusuf Hawkins. Yusuf, or Usef with a U. So Yusuf is the husband of Mary, father of Jesus. And guess what? One of Asar Seker, one of his names was also Seker Asar. Okay, the rest of the Seker Asar. And guess what one of his names were? We go to the British Museum back to 1250 BC, museum number EA9901, and we're here on plate 37. It says, Seker, Lord of the hidden place, great God, Lord of the underworld. He wears the white crown with a feather. And Marit, see Marit here, Mary is Isis. That is Osiris's wife's name was Mary. That is literally where they get the word Mary from. So Mary is Isis, and Osar, look what his name is. Let's blow it up. That of Seker Osar, his name is, look at that, Yusef, which means the mighty one he is. So Seker, you see that? Seker Osar is Yusef, that's the Usur symbol, and the F, which means he who is of, the Usur, the powerful one, Usef Seker, which is Yusef, and his wife is Mary. So, and their son is Heru, the begotten son, the God, the Son of God. This is where they get the stories from. These are your connections. The Ptolemies had the Book of the Dead. They have their own Book of the Dead, and they literally copied and created these stories. So we have Mary and Yusef, who is the mother and father of Heru, the golden one, who is the Son of God, who is the resurrected one, also, who is God and the Son of God at the same time. Okay? So that is your story. Those are your stories there, completely copied. I only have a 10-minute time period, so I can't show everything. But I want to close out and say, get back to the screen here, and say these stories are clearly copied. The Ptolemies admitted that they copied and created Serapis. They admitted this. This is acknowledged. They stole the information. We have yet to see any museum number references to anything that pertains to a Jesus. Anything. We need first-hand accounts of people who claim they were affected by Jesus' life. I'm giving you first-hand accounts of documented museum artifacts, which shows the Ptolemies literally taking books and scrolls of papyruses they had and making something new. That's why you can only find it in Rome and Greece. Where are the stories of Jesus outside of Rome and Greece writings? Where are they? They don't exist because the Greeks and the Romans are the ones who created the whole story and continued it from Alexander the Great through the Ptolemies, all the way on to Hadrian, all the way on to all the Romans until they completely transformed it into Christianity from the word charast. This is a stolen story. Please deal with it. And please show us the Christian stories. Peace. Can't hear you, sir. You're muted.
Peace, brother Vocab Malone. Oh man, you got 3 minutes in this rebuttal round. Powerful closing round. Oh my. Powerful. Hey, brother Vocab. You got 3 minutes to try to soften this shit up a little bit, brother. Where you at, Vocab?
Yeah, right. All right.
You got 3 minutes to rebuttal, Vocab, and then you can ask a question. Both of y'all will be able to ask each other questions.
All right. Luke 1:31, he refers to the fact that Christ, the Messiah, means the anointed one. By trying to make a parallel to Kemet, he's totally ignoring the Hebrew context of what it means for one to be the Messiah. This is one whom the Spirit of the Lord rests upon. Indeed, even what John the Baptist says about Jesus in the New Testament. It has nothing to do with Kemeticism or anything else. It goes back to being empowered by the Spirit of God for a task. This is something within the Hebrew monotheistic religion. And again, I don't know if he just misspoke, but where he said, here's the original Book of the Dead. There is no one original Book of the Dead. It's multiple books of the dead. I don't know if he just misspoke when he said, here's the original Book of the Dead. It's one of the books of the dead because there's a whole bunch of ones. I imagine he knows that, but he doesn't seem to know Bach and Ka. He's using budge there, which can be fine sometimes, but there's other places, since we've grown in our knowledge and understanding, where modern Egyptologists, as they know the language better, reject budge. That's one of them. Bach means your soul. Ka is your spirit or your mentality. He's trying to draw some connection that is simply not there by using an outdated translation. And some of the titles are common A&E trash talk titles. King of Kings, Lord of Lords. This is stock language like what a battle rapper would use. But the difference is within the Hebrew context, what is it? It's monotheistic. He again and again is not understanding the Ten Commandments, the fact of who Yahweh is, the fact that this is the God unique to Israel, the fact that he's in covenant with the people. He's not recognizing any of that. And so when you start talking about this stuff, you should recognize some of the A&E Hebraic background connection before you go on. And this is why it's so befuddling to me that he thinks he's doing a good job when he brings up 20th century pictures from the internet of white Jesus to compare them to ancient Egyptian drawings. What do those pictures have to do with the founding of Christianity, or if Jesus ever existed? I do not understand why you think that's a good argument. You're bringing up 20th century images of white Jesus. That has nothing to do with anything. Seriously. John 1:29, he brought up Lamb of God. Did he not understand the background there is the Passover? The Passover is the background, not some Egyptian animal. And he even got the animal wrong. That ram was not Osiris. It was Amun-Ra. Amun-Re. He didn't even get the animal right in the picture he was showing. So mad problems, even from his own sources. I do not understand this. Joseph is Yosef in Hebrew, begins with a yod. Totally unrelated to wasf, the term he's trying to utilize. Something that sounds the same, a homophone, does not equal the same meaning. I wish that would be understood, but that's one of the problems we have in today's debate. I don't hear you, bro. You're muted, Sonetta.
You can ask a question to Tahuti, and then Tahuti will come back and ask you a question. Then you will go back and ask Tahuti a question, and he will come back and ask you a question. You have 1 minute. Y'all need 1 minute or 2 minutes to answer the question. I'll give y'all 2 minutes.
Sure.
To answer the question.
Tahuti, who would you say are two of the best first century historians that are experts in that area? I'm talking about modern people that are experts of the first century. Who are two of the best that you learn from? Who are two of the best historians of antiquity that you learn from?
I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, who's the best?
No, two of the best historians of antiquity
that I learned from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any best, nor do I have any that I choose to learn from. It depends what your topic is.
Maybe two that you've read.
Yeah, I don't have any because the people of the time that were supposed to be Hebrews, there's no record of them recording history, being historians pertaining to this Jesus topic that we're speaking of. So I don't have any favorites. I don't have any that I like or dislike. There's many historians that you've named that I'm familiar with, but of those historians that you named, those are all. Pardon?
Are there any historians you ever read ever?
That's another question. I'm answering you're asking me one question, yes?
But I asked if you've read any.
I think I'm muted. Yeah, I think your question was, who is my favorite of the first century historians? Unless you're putting two questions.
No, that's not what I was asking. I said, who are some modern people who are scholars of antiquity? That's specifically what it said.
That are my favorites. You definitely have the word favorite in there in the question. Okay, and my answer is that I don't have any favorites. And as far as historians in the first century, it would be all the ones that you named.
Any scholars of antiquity you're familiar with?
All? Oh, yes, I'm familiar with all the ones that you named, and I don't acknowledge them when it comes to this topic. So none of them are my favorites.
Okay. But you don't speak Hebrew, right?
No, I don't acknowledge a language called Hebrew.
All right, time. Tahuti, it's your turn. You got a minute. You got to ask Vocab. And Vocab got 2 minutes to answer.
Okay, good. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Vocab, could you for us, because you seem to be very learned in putting up information on the screen, and you're very skilled in history and scholarly sources, could you provide one piece of writing to discuss this ancient writing that discusses the hundreds of walking corpses that invaded, it was either Jerusalem or Damascus, in the quote that I gave, that many saints came out of their grave from the dead and walked into the cities? Could you just give us a source of that story so I can analyze it?
Yeah, it doesn't say hundreds.
Many. Many. Sorry.
Hundreds.
Many. So I'm not sure what many could be. 70. But could you just give us some of them?
Matthew, who's a Hebrew.
I think I'm. Okay, so your source of the story that's coming from Matthew, which is 40 years decades after the fact, is your source of the people that saw it? Because Matthew, Matthew saw it.
Matthew is a disciple. He is one of the 12. He's in all the disciple lists. Says Matthew or Levi, which is a Hebrew way to say the name. And he was someone who was very educated as a tax collector, so he was literate and could read multiple languages, like a lot of the Hebrews in that area that day. And there's no reason to doubt the historicity of Matthew. It doesn't say hundreds, but I'm surprised you would have a problem with walking corpses, even though that's not the way the Bible describes it, because you're into a religion that's about sex with corpses.
So, okay, can you hear me? Okay, good. So in other words, of all the people that were in that city that got stormed by the dead people that came out of their graves, not one witness saw, because Matthew didn't say himself he saw it. He wasn't there in the cities to see the people coming in. He wrote about it, but he didn't say that he was there. Plus it was way after the date. I'm talking about, is there any record from any Hebrews in Hebrew of this amazing story?
Matthew was the right Hebrew.
Yes or no?
He was an eyewitness.
There's a book of Matthew in Hebrew that we can.
Not extent, but he wrote Hebrew. He could write in Hebrew. I mean, he was able to understand the Old Testament. He was a Hebrew.
No, you cannot provide any indigenous Hebrew writing of this story.
Extent? Yeah, that's true. But you wouldn't be able to read it anyway because you can't read Hebrew, or you wouldn't read scholars who would accept it. So I don't understand what the issue would be.
Okay, no problem. So there's no eyewitnesses to this story written by indigenous people. No problem. We can go on.
I didn't say that.
Could you provide us, please, with the eyewitnesses that saw these bodies?
Where does it say that? It doesn't say that
Vocab.
or he didn't talk to eyewitnesses.
All right,
Otherwise, how would he
Vocab is
know?
on you to ask a question.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you believe that Horus is a real being who has real existence and needs to eat and have food put in his body?
Ask the question again, please. Sorry.
You believe that Horus has actual ontology, meaning that he is a real being who exists?
I teach according to the stories themselves that the people of the time taught that he was. Yes.
Can you name an eyewitness to Horus's existence?
That they saw it.
Can you name an eyewitness? No.
I was muted in I was muted in there. Okay. I do not. Can you guys hear me? I do not take a stand. I personally do not take a stand, nor will I debate me proving the existence of Horus. I will only say what the people in their culture wrote in their language.
Okay. But do you know the names of any eyewitnesses who saw Horus?
Can you hear me? It depends which one, because Heru was a common name that was used. And once again, I don't debate that there was eyewitnesses. These were stories that were told by the culture.
But I've heard you say that you believe Horus had actual existence. I mean, the ancient Egyptians believed that he needed to be fed and put to bed. Do you believe that Horus needed to be put to bed according to the sources?
If you can show me that, I don't have no reference of Horus needing to be put to bed.
Okay,
Let me finish though. Let me finish.
Sorry.
Let me finish. Yeah. Regardless of what I believe about Horus in my personal home and my personal religious path is irrelevant to the debate topic. The debate topic is Jesus.
And let me show you why that's correct. One is, you're right when you say it's mythical, based on this one, you think it's historical, and you think Horus is real, Jesus is not showing that you got
the reason why I keep muting you, Tahuti, because there's a big echo. And so when he speak, I got to put you on mute. When you speak, I got to mute it. So that's why I'm muting it. Okay. You got the question now, Tahuti. You can ask your question. Hold up, Tahuti. Hold on. Go ahead. You can ask your question.
Okay. In the last round, you had mentioned in a rebuttal to me when I had asked, where is there any ancient Hebrew writings that that prophesies of this Jesus? You brought up the silver scrolls, the Ketim, as the oldest. Could you refer me to where in the silver scrolls can I read about the prophecies of your Jesus? Could you refer me to where?
There is a mistake in the question. I said a text older than Septuagint. I didn't say anything about referring directly to Jesus. I never said that. But here's what the amulet says. The great who keeps the covenant and graciousness towards those who love him and those who keep his commandments, the eternal, blessing more than any and more than evil, for the redemption is in him. For Yahweh is a restorer and rock. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine. That's amulet 1. Amulet 2 is, may he or she be blessed by Yahweh, the warrior helper and the rebuker of evil. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and grant you peace. So there's the silver scrolls right there, which are found west of Jerusalem. And here's what's interesting. They don't say the name Yeshua because he was not born yet. But Yeshua was identified with the person of Yahweh in the New Testament. So
sorry, Vocab, you're actually taking up my question time by not referring to the question that I asked, and it's going to take up time till the alarm. I don't know if you understood the question. I brought up that there's no ancient Hebrew writings that have prophecies from the culture themselves of your Jesus. And I said the oldest prophecies are in the Septuagint. You brought up the silver scrolls. So my question to you is there any reference to a prophecy of Jesus in the silver scrolls? Because the only reason I brought up the Septuagint was not to say those are the oldest writings, period, but they're the oldest writings of the prophecies of your Jesus. So you brought up the silver scrolls. Is there any ancient Hebrew prophecies of your Jesus in the silver scrolls? Yes or no? That's all. I'll just say.
Well, in those little silver scrolls, I already said it doesn't say the name Yeshua, but you missed the way the argument worked. You were claiming essentially the Ptolemies affected or influenced or basically almost created the Bible via the Septuagint. But I was showing you that the Ptolemies can't have been the creators or makings of these when you have silver scrolls dating way prior to that 7th century BC, showing that the Ptolemies did not create the Torah or the Pentateuch, as some people call it. That was the point what I was saying there.
All right, family. That's it. We're gonna move on now to the callers. Let's go. I want everybody to call in and ask a question, not to call in to teach. This goes for everybody. Remember, you're calling in, you're asking a question, and you're gonna hang up in case there's a lot of calls. All right. If there's no one else in the queue, y'all could call on and ask some questions. So this is your time now. This is on y'all now. Call it in, ask your question. Let's go. Let's get it in. Don't call that one, y'all. Don't call that one. Everybody don't call at the same time. All right. Peace and Black Power family. What's your name and where you calling from?
This is Vince calling from North Carolina.
All right. What's up, brother? What's on your mind?
I was looking at the debate, and I would like to ask Vocab, Malone, the question about Christ.
All right, go ahead. Ask him.
Okay. Vocab, when was the first church that was built in Istanbul, Turkey, in 537? I was studying the ecumenical councils, and you can't find Christ till you have the Hagia Sophia, the Church of the Holy Wisdom. Could you explain that?
I'm not sure what you got to help me out. What your question is? The Hagia Sophia is certainly a church. Huh?
Okay, at the Council of Ephesus.
Okay.
When
Come on, brother.
It was the Theotokos. Mary was called the Mother of God, and so you get Christ right there. And then I want to ask a question about that the church in 537, you don't have no Christ after then.
Oh yeah, that's incorrect. I remember, brother, I'm not into all these icons and all that. I'm essentially an iconoclast. I think these images of the divine are not biblically warranted and are usually historically inaccurate. And I'm not saying Mary is divine. I'm referring to Jesus there. But I also don't think it's helpful to portray all these people the way they get portrayed. But there is in Hagia Sophia an image of the Christ child. It's right next to Constantine, who's holding a model of the city of Constantinople. So an image of Christ is there. Not only that, at the center of the cupola, there was once there a mosaic of Christ.
Your caller just hung up. Goodbye.
It was there at Hagia Sophia.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, man. All right. Let's call it in, y'all. It's the time to call in.
One other thing on that is we have churches prior to Hagia Sophia, and they also have images of Christ as well. So I don't know if he's aware of that. But once the Christians got over their lack of desire of wanting to portray the crucifixion victims and Christ, a lot of them started doing those kind of images. Again, I'm iconoclastic. I don't think that's what you're supposed to do, but it is the fact they did.
All right, peace and black power. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Real G's in the building. What's up, Sonetta?
What's going on, Real G's? You got a question for who?
Well, I got a question for the audience. Who won the debate? One for Tahuti, two for Vocab Malone.
All right, thank you, brother.
All right.
All right, let's call it in, y'all. This is the time. This is the time. Call it in. Yeah, I want them to close out because I let them close out if y'all don't want to call it in. All right, peace and black power. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is Apostle Zaquan.
Uh-oh. All right, Apostle in the building. You got a question for who, brother?
I got a question for both of them. I'm going to start with Malone.
All right, let's go.
All right, Vocab. In the Bible, we have the word Jesus that we commonly accept as the Son of God. But in the 1611 King James and in the William Tyndale of the 27 or 1557, they use a different word that would give us to think that before the 1600s, we didn't use the word Jesus. So do you know what you called on your God and what his name was, since you say Jesus is God before the 1600s?
You're saying, what name did they use instead for Jesus in there?
Yeah, before the 1600s. What name did they use? Because clearly Jesus didn't exist until after the 1600s.
You mean the name? You mean the name Jesus? Well, I have the Tyndale up right before me, and
okay.
I'm looking at the Tyndale. It's right here, and it says, "Then Jesus said unto his disciples."
Well, no, okay, then look at the date of his publishing.
It is in the Tyndale.
Because William Tyndale was written in what?
I'm gonna show my screen. Here, I'm gonna show my screen because I have it up.
So you know that's a misprint though, because the word Jesus, that's modern English. So you know they was using old English back then. So it would not have been Jesus.
Okay, so here's
you do know that, right?
This is the Gospel of Matthew. This is it. And it says this is the book of generations of Jesus Christ. And you notice how the spelling, it's all the old spelling.
Yeah, so it don't say Jesus, right? Because it should say IUSUS, right? IU.
Well, I'm just saying your information's wrong. This is the Tyndale.
My information's wrong?
Yeah, I have the Tyndale up. I'm looking at Matthew, and it says Jesus. Do you see it? It's on the screen.
No, I froze the screen to keep this echoing, man.
Just turn it down, Apostle. You could turn it down.
Yeah.
And then you can keep the screen on.
All right, I tell you what. Pull up the 1611 King James.
All right.
Okay, since you can open up the Tyndale, open up the 1611 King James.
I'll make sure it's the...
And if you tell me it says Jesus, then I know you're lying, because I got it right in front of me.
I don't know if this is the 1611. Let me...
You can look it up, the 1611 King James Bible.
Oh, well, I was doing it on my program. But yeah, okay, I'll do that there too. But I mean, I don't go by the KJV or the Tyndale as far as them being authoritative and definitive, so it's not really relevant. But I'm just saying you were wrong about Tyndale. But
no, I'm not wrong about Tyndale. The original Tyndale Bible, and not the republished or the revised one.
Well, look, I mean,
it
it's
does
pretty
not
simple.
have the word Jesus in it because it was written in 1557, and the word Jesus did not exist. I'm sorry, son, but the word Jesus did not exist until after the 1600s. It's modern English. Any student of the Bible should know that, let alone a scholar.
I don't necessarily disagree, but we speak modern English. We don't speak Old English.
I disagree with it because it's true.
No, what I'm saying is, but we speak modern English. What are we talking about right now?
Huh?
We speak modern English, so what's wrong with saying a modern English term for Yeshua?
Right. We speak modern English, so you need to find out where the word Jesus came from, since it didn't exist prior.
All right, Apostle, let's move forward to the next question, brother.
You can't deal with the question. You're calling on a fake God, man. Tehuti, brother, you did a great job tonight, man. I got to stand up with you, man, because you made this Christian look really silly. But at the same time, you did mention that the Messiah was the Son of God. I mean, was the Lamb of God, correct?
Yes, brother. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me, Apostle?
I can hear you.
Okay, peace. Yes, according to the New Testament quote, yes, only for the purposes of the debate. Yes. Thank you, Ned.
Yeah, I hear you now. Good. Yeah. Now, and you said that it used the same word, Lamb of God, for Osiris or Mem or who? Which one?
Hey, Apostle, when you ask the question, I need you to be quiet because this joint be mute. When I open up his mic, it'll be echoing.
Wasn't sure if he heard me, sir.
Yeah, he heard you. All right.
Okay.
Yes, the ram was used for Ammon, and it was also used for Osar, and that's why and that's why you see the pharaohs, especially in front of Ramesses, sitting underneath the ram, because they're baby rams, which make them all the pharaoh's lambs.
Okay. So one pharaohs has a lamb being sacrificed, like Christ is being sacrificed?
Interesting. That's an interesting question because yes,
Apostle, every time you ask him a question, you cut him off and keep asking him when he's answering.
I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I can't hear him.
Okay, well, when you ask the question, he's answering it, and then you cut him off. All right, go ahead.
Okay, Apostle, if you can hear me, can you just ask your one question, stop, and then I'll go ahead and answer, because it seems like it's a lot of questions coming in at once.
Okay. Just let me start over. This is the comparison of the deities in Kemet being vilified as a lamb. And we know Christ is vilified as being a lamb because his life is being life up, shedding his blood so that his blood can cover the sins of his people. So is it in the same like manner, your deities, are they lambs as their lives are being sacrificed in that same manner? Because if their lives are not being sacrificed, then the fact that they call themselves lambs has nothing to do with Christ being a lamb, because his life is about coming, dying.
All right.
Great question, my brother Apostle. Thank you for it. So the original concept of a ram being sacrificed comes in the form of what's called DEABTE, and that was Osiris in the form of a ram. He was the first one who was killed in the Kemetic teachings, who gave everyone after that everlasting life. So he was considered the ultimate sacrifice, because in Kemet he was the one recorded that was killed. He was the ram. Actual rams and goats were sacrificed in ancient times, where you get the concept of a scapegoat. And that's why they put in the Bible that Abraham and others were sacrificing rams, because this was actually done in real cultures that actually existed. So yes, Osiris, Asar, was the ram. He was sacrificed or killed by Set in the story, and then afterwards he was able to give people everlasting life. And this is where your concept of Jesus being a lamb, sacrifice and giving everlasting life originates. Before there was Testament.
All right. Hold on,
Tahuti. Not a ram.
All right. Hold on, Tahuti. Hold on, Apostle.
Yeah.
Hold on, brother. You already asked the question. We got to move forward. You can always come back because we got a lot of people calling in. Hold on. We got a lot of people calling in, brother. And I want to just say that I am highly impressed with you, Apostle. You're starting to come around, especially the way you gave credit to his third round, because his third round, he was proving and showing a lot of stuff. And you being a Hebrew Israelite, you know, he was coming through, showing you that the comparison where a lot of this stuff come from, and you just gave him props on that. So I appreciate you, brother. I remember you coming through the other day saying that the white man translated the Bible, the devil. So you're doing great, and you're coming along, and I am very impressed with you, my brother Apostle. Let me move forward. You can come back and ask another question. Morpheus.
Yeah, he goes to the King James. Osiris is not a ram in the contentions of Horus and Seth.
Oh, hold on, Morpheus.
Where is Osiris ever a ram?
Let Vocab respond. Go ahead, Vocab.
Yeah, I'm saying, where is Osiris ever a ram? He's not portrayed that way in the contentions of Horus and Seth. He's never a ram. He's portrayed as a bull.
So you saying that to Tahuti?
Yeah, I'm saying he's wrong. Where's the source for that? He's never portrayed as a lamb. Never.
Okay. If you are familiar with the images, the very popular images of Asar being in the middle and his two mates or wives being on either side, Nebtet and Aset are on the sides. I'm going to show you the image right now of that where he is the ram. And then we'll move on. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do a screen share.
That's king. In the picture, that's the king.
Screen share. Tell me if it's screen sharing.
Hey, you gotta stop and then start it all over again.
Okay, one moment.
He's gonna show us a picture of the king.
Okay, we're gonna go back. There. And this ram was also called Benedejeb.
You got to get headphones next time, Tahuti.
Okay, I have headphones here if they need to.
Yeah, throw them in because it's bad.
Okay. Can you see the screen, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, this is the
headphones at?
One second. Nana? Yeah. Grab my headphones, please.
Well, this is a complete image. No one can verify this.
Headphones?
He's got a cropped image. That's Amun-Red. That's not the king. I'm sorry, that's not Osiris. Amun-Re. Tehuti, you got the wrong god.
Hold on, Vocab. You're getting the headphones ready.
And then I can.
All right.
Okay, can you hear me? They are in, and now
they hear the echo.
On. Can you hear me? Okay.
Oh no.
Do you see the silver disc and the horns?
Now you're good.
Okay, good. Okay, so Benedejeb, which means the soul of Osiris, he is portrayed as the straight-haired ram deity, with Aset and Nebtet on either side of him, resurrecting him with the sun on his head. Let me go back to over here.
That was Amun.
And
can you prove it's Osiris?
One moment. We're gonna go.
The name you gave is also not the name of Osiris either.
Okay, one moment, please. One moment. As a Christian, let me go ahead and speak on. As a person who studies this, let me go ahead and speak on Kemet, and then you can speak on. You'll be the authority on Jesus. But here's the Pantheon Egyptian, and here we have Benedejeb, and Benedejeb. The word Benedejeb itself is Ba, and I'm going to take this off. Ba, which is soul, Neb, which is the sustainer or the Lord, the Djed, which is another name for what Osiris was known for, because the Djed represented his spine. So when he was in the form of Benedejeb, he was the resurrected ram, shown as a ram because a ram in Kemet was
Could
a
you bring
symbol.
that picture back up again, though?
Was
please?
a symbol. Excuse me, sir. Hold on.
Because we can't see the picture anymore. I'm just asking if you could bring the picture back up.
Yeah, was a symbol of fertility and resurrection. Let me see if I can go back. Where'd it go?
The one that was blue, I think. The blue. Oh, you highlight.
Oh no, not that. Okay, no, that's the bird that he claims is real having sex. But let me go back to.
Zoom in a little bit on that. Go down a little bit, yeah. Could you go up a little bit there? To the top there.
Okay, so I'm going to get on with other callers because this is actually not supposed to be the continued debate between me and Post. And
Right.
This is supposed to be the
moon ray. The text to the right of the image says a moon ray.
This is supposed to be a question and answer, and because you don't know, because
it said a moon ray on the image.
Because you don't understand that these names for these netters are sometimes interchangeable based on the description of what they are, that Asar is also called Ray, and Ray is in Asar's name, and the word Ray is actually the part of makes up the Asar's name, which has the eye on top of a throne. Because you don't know these intricacies, yes, you will continue to argue. I study these intricacies and I can do a whole class on it, but this is not the time for that, for me to discuss why Asar would be an Amun Ray, a hidden sun, because he
so
is
you admit it says a moon ray.
The Amun Ray is a description, but you wouldn't understand what Amun Ray means because you think no, it doesn't mean the Lord of Heaven. The word for Lord is Neb.
No, I'm saying that's what it says beside it. It says Lord of Heaven, Amun Ray, showing it's not Osiris.
It's Benedejeb and Amun Ray, because Amun is the hidden one when Asar is buried, and when the sun is not seen, it's called the hidden sun, and Ray is the sun. So at the end of the day, when the sun is unseen, it's also called an Amun Ray, and it represents Asar when he's buried, and then when he resurrects, it also becomes a Ray. So there's different cycles of the sun that's compared to the death and resurrection of Osar. But I'd like to get. Are we doing debate?
We debate. Forward, y'all. We got to call on the line.
Are we doing debate? Are we doing debate part 2? Sorry,
well,
we can. We can.
To the people.
We can start.
All right, hold on.
Yes, it's Benedejeb Amun Ray, which is also Osiris. Yes. Yes.
We got to move forward to the people. Peace and Black Power family. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, he is the Lord of Heaven. Yes, he is.
Osiris?
Yo, this is Morpheus.
What's up, Morpheus?
Yeah, hey, I got a question for Vocab. It's a part 2 question for Vocab. My question is about the seed. Right? It's a very important question about the seed. Do you share the Israelite thought that the seed is through the father? Yes or no?
Well, only technically a father possesses seed, but Genesis 3:15 talks about the woman's seed, which is a proto-evangelion to the virgin birth. Genesis 3:15.
Right, so which one is it? Yeah, so which one is it? Is it the father or is the woman? Which one carries the seed?
No, I'm saying technically the father only has seed, but Genesis 3:15 is an interesting passage because it refers to seed of the woman, indicating something about
so
Jesus.
Then that's right. So that would be a contradiction, then, right?
No, it's a foreshadowing of the virgin birth.
Hold up, but you just said that the father. You said technically it's the father's seed. Then you said Genesis 3:15 says the woman's seed. They both can't be correct. Which one of those are correct?
It's a way to let the reader know something's going on in the text because it's abnormal to refer to the seed of the woman. The Hebrews knew this. I mean, Genesis has lots of information about seeds. You know, every seed-bearing plant, all this is known. But if it's saying that in Genesis 3:15, there's a reason for it. You can jump to it's a contradiction if you want, but that's not what an inquisitive and charitable reader should do.
No, so what I'm asking is, so which one of, it's a simple question, which one of those are correct?
What do you mean? Well, in regards to the Messiah, he had no father. So Genesis 3:15 describes one man who was born on this planet.
So then, all right, now, the expected Messiah was supposed to come from the seed of David, but yet Jesus' father is God, that he can't be the one they're talking about because his seed didn't come through Joseph.
Oh, he's from Joseph's line on both sides, Mary and
but Joseph is not his father.
Legally, that's why Joseph's genealogy is given. Legally,
but Joseph's blood is not running through Jesus.
That's not the only way you're considered father.
No. Listen, I'm talking about. No. Follow me. The seed. I understand you can have adopted father. I'm not talking about adopted. When you're talking about the seed, that's not adopted. That's blood. So I'm asking if the expected Messiah was supposed to come from the seed, meaning bloodline of David, yet you intend that Jesus is the Son of God, then Jesus can't be the seed of David.
He's son of God and son of David. Where's the problem? I mean, Romans literally says that. Romans 1.
Does anybody else understand my question? I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying, but check this out in Romans 1. Which he promised beforehand, this is Romans 1:2, which he promised beforehand through his prophets and the Holy Scriptures concerning his son. So who doing the promising? It's God. So he's called God's son there. And then right after that, in Romans 1:3, it says, who was descended from David according to the flesh and was declared to be the Son of God in power according to the Spirit of holiness by his resurrection from the dead. So he's
okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, he's one of a kind in regards to being the Son of God, right? That's why there's a Greek word there that's sometimes pronounced as monogenes. It means one of a kind. Monogenes, one of a kind. And the Bible describes Jesus as the unique Son of God. In the old translations, they say only begotten Son, but it's a little misleading because people then think begotten. They think like some kind of literal, birth or something like that. But monogenes means unique, one of a kind. So in John, he's called monogenes, the only Son of God. But it's not as if, in Mormon theology, where God takes a human form and has sex with Mary, it says the Holy Spirit will overshadow you. So it's a Trinitarian work. And you see that he's declared both. He's a Son of God and a Son of David. It's a legal thing.
But Vocab, how can that be? He's the only begotten of a son. Yet I can go to Psalms 3:7 and says, this day I have begotten thee. This is David in the book of Psalms, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And that same quote is made to David. It says, this day have I begotten thee to David. But you just said Jesus is the only begotten son later on, but the same verse is talking about, is being said to Psalms. But jump over that. I'm still trying to get to the point of, is Jesus the son of Joseph's seed? Are we talking about seed? Is he the seed of Joseph, or is he the seed of God? Seed, not adopted. I'm hanging on seed.
Well, the answer is in Hebrews 1:5. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become as much as superior to the angels, as the name he has inherited is more excellent than others. For to which of the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? So this is a citation to the verse that you referenced, which is Psalm 2:7, and is essentially invoking the whole psalm there, which is what they would do. This is the Messiah, the anointed one, according to the beginning of the Psalm 2:2. He's the king over all. If you look at verses 6-8, and especially according to verse 7, God's son. So this today I have begotten you is just simply a poetic expression. What does it do? It reflects the unique relationship to the Son of God. That's all it does. It speaks of this kind of new thing that's going on, which I think is a reference ultimately to the incarnation. And you see this repeated.
Okay, I'm not going to be long. I'm going to jump off. All right. Hold on. I'm just saying, let me jump off real quick, Sab. I'm just saying, you still have it. Everything you just read is not addressing my question about is he the son, because Joseph's line, so according to the biblical Bible, goes to David. So if Joseph is not his physical father, his blood is not running through Jesus. Joseph's blood is not running through Jesus, clearly. So how is he, well, I'm trying to figure out that respected Messiah that's supposed to come through the seed of David if Joseph's blood is not running through Jesus? All right, I'm going to go, Sal. So, yeah,
all right, thank you, brother.
When you bring up seed of David, it's important because then you're showing you don't literally mean seed because David did not impregnate Mary. You show you mean lineage there. And that's what ultimately is important. And so you also see there in Hebrews 1:5, which is really the answer to your question about the sonship of Christ, where it says, he shall be to me a son. That's from 2 Samuel 7:14. And that originally, in its original context, is to King David, saying basically to King David, you're going to be the covenant heir. And that's what it means by that. But if you look at the larger context, you might think, oh, this means Solomon. But Solomon failed to establish the law, and so his house was not going to be established forever, the Bible says, right? So the promise can only be fulfilled by the Davidic Messiah. So Psalm 2 and 2 Samuel 7 are directly linked together by this word son. That's a special designation. And so this is messianic theology put together, and you see some of this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. 4Q Florigellum is the reference I have, and it links that same thing together. What I'm saying by that is there's other Jews of the day, Hebrews, the Essenes most likely, who saw that link being ultimately the messianic son.
All right, Tahuti, do you want to respond or take the next caller?
Well, let me just, I'm going to respond to something really quick just for the audience so they can see something, and then I'll take the caller. The response is only going to be a couple of seconds. So we just clearly saw that yes, Jesus was not of the seed or the bloodline of David. I believe that was Brother Morpheus who was asking that.
Yes.
And so it's very clear that he's not from that seed, so he doesn't fulfill that prophecy. But I want to show something just for clarity for the other question for the audience, just really quick. And this is here out of the Purim Haru, the Book of the Dead.
You got to do it again. It's rolling. It's rolling.
It's rolling again?
Go out. Come in.
Okay, hold on. Let's try it again. Okay. Share. So Osiris or Osar was called the Lord of Dejet or Tetu because it represented his spine. And that's
it's up and running.
Okay, good. So this is a papyrus of Ani, and this is page 213. When we go down to the bottom here, we will see is the neck of Osiris triumphant of Isis, or the two hands of Osar, Osiris Ani, triumphant of the ram, Lord of Tatu. So Osiris was the triumphant of the ram, Lord of Tatu. He was called the ram or the Ba, and the Ba was also where you get the word Bened the Jeb. So yes, Osiris was associated with the ram. I just wanted to clarify that. And let's get to the callers, because it seems like the last call, that was a great question. And I don't think Vocab was able to clarify that Jesus was the seed of David. So we'll get to the next one.
All right, peace and Black Power family. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Black Jesus Minister. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Black Jesus. What's up?
Tehuti, Tehuti, Tehuti. Your incarcerated God by the name of Dr. Malachi Z. York.
We just need you to ask a question, brother.
I am asking my question.
Okay.
I'm asking my question, setting it up. Your God, incarcerated God, Malachi Z. York, along with all ancient historians, agree that Jesus, the consensus is that Jesus is a historical person. So can you explain what evidence and what authority do you have to disagree with the consensus of ancient historians and your incarcerated God, Dr. Malachi Z. York?
Is that the question?
That's my question.
Brother, Black Jesus Minister. Brother Black Jesus Minister.
Call.
I don't have any incarcerated. I'll wait for that to.
Voicemail. Press
Hold on,
guys.
To accept, press 1.
Okay, Brother Black Jesus Minister, rolling and strolling and shucking and all that stuff that you say. Peace, brother. I have no idea what you're speaking of. I don't have any incarcerated God. I don't know what you're talking about, nor do I acknowledge, nor am I of the teachings of the man that you mentioned. You said Malachi Z. York. Did I go through some of Malachi Z. York's teachings when I was much younger? Absolutely. Did he affect my life in a positive way? Yes, he did. I also had many school teachers when I was younger. Do I acknowledge what they're doing today? No. And I've also was a Seventh-day Adventist and many other things. So no, I don't have any incarcerated God that acknowledges, and even if that man Malachi Z. York did acknowledge that, it has absolutely nothing to do with what I teach. I don't claim to be a Nuwabian or a follower of Malachi Z. York, so your premise is based on a false logical fallacy. So I can't answer that question, brother, because I don't follow Malachi Z. York. Peace.
All right.
We had a mistake there with the ram. That was a determinative.
You done, Black Jesus?
That was a determinative, is not tied to Osiris. I just phoned a friend on that to make sure. That ram there was determinative. It's not tied to Osiris. And my friend who has a degree in the language says you would know that if you understood the language. And that's I know cool. You had a big kerfuffle with Jabari about the determinative too. So there seems to be some issues there, because the determinative is a silent character used to make the phonetic. And so you just showed a determinative to try to prove your point. You're going off.
Unfortunately, whoever informed you that that was a determinative over the ram was the word ba. Not silent, but an actual word. So it's not silent. It's the word ba. Next question, please.
Hello, you've reached Pastor William Bennett. Sorry.
All right. Let's get these callers in, y'all. Let's get these callers in. Oh, man. Captain Tazariot. Oh, yeah, Captain is relaxing. He can't do nothing until until his month is over. I know he wish he can get in right now.
All right, any more callers coming in?
Peace and Black Power. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is MJ Jackson. I'm calling from Fort Worth.
I can't hear you. Take it off the speaker, bro.
MJ Jackson calling from Fort Worth, Texas.
All right, what's up, MJ Jackson?
Yeah, shout out to Vocab Malone. Got a question for Brother Tehuti.
Go ahead.
Brother Tehuti, you made much ado about nothing regarding the name Mary basically being a ripoff of Mary. But I'm pretty sure, since you are the expert on all things Kemetic, you should know that Mary was not a name. It was not a name. It was a title. That title could be used for priest. That title was also used for a tomb of Mary Hara, which was a high priest. That title was also used. It was also used for Ramesses. Ramesses, Mary, Amun, Nuwebian, Ben. I mean, how do you explain that? It seemed like you was reaching on that or trying to make some of your evidence fit the data that we have in Christianity. What's up with that, man?
Okay, great. Great question. Great loaded question, but I'll accept it. So let me go ahead and do the screen share once again.
He probably knows that her name is Miriam anyway. Mary's just the English way we say the Hebrew.
I think Vocab is answering for me. Go ahead, Vocab.
Yeah, well, I mean, her full name would be Miriam, like from the Old Testament. So the sound-alike thing would kind of fall short there.
Okay, great.
Say one more thing before you answer.
But let me. I have to do things step by step, please. You asked a question,
just one more thing,
and I'm about to answer the question, and then you can do the one more thing. But I want to show right here.
No private calls. No private calls.
No
private calls.
Private calls, what's that mean?
Like people calling in privately. They scared. So if you're scared, don't call in.
Oh, you're saying like don't say their name or something?
No, like it says private calls. Private calls.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I need to know who's calling me. Like they know who's calling them. Like they see my number, I need to see theirs.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Can everybody can you see the screen?
Yes, I see it. Tahuti, you up?
Okay. So we have Mary with a T at the end that makes something feminine. Lover of silence, because Seker, Osiris, because he died, was known as the Silent One, is a name of Isis and Heteru, Hathor, as goddess of the underworld. Mary, Sekert, lover of silence, is a name. Okay, so name or title, it is one of the most popular names of Aset. She was called Mary, he was called Yusef. So we'll get on to the next question. Is it a word that's used? And I want to clarify this too. Is it a word that's used in Kemet, because every name is also an actual word that can be used in a sentence? So yes, if I'm speaking about Matt Damon, there's a man named Matt Damon, and there's also a floor mat. There's also these words like joy. There's a woman named Joy, and there's also joy as in the feeling that you give. So yes, there's many different times where mir is used for what it means, because it can also mean water, which also associates with Aset because she's called the goddess of inundation. But this was her name, and one of her titles was Marie Sekert. So yes, this was her name. The Ptolemies knew it, and there's nothing much more to say on that. Peace.
All right, peace.
Hey.
Okay, is there a follow?
I can spell, and that ain't Mary. but and so that's a nice moving up the goalpost. I really appreciate that, and you're continuing to blow it. But I'm glad that you agree with me that the name is a title and can be used of basically anybody, right? Would you agree? Didn't you just
like anybody's name in the Bible, like the word Joseph means to add on to. So anytime you're talking about adding on, you can say the word Joseph. Like every name in the Bible is also used in a sentence. Yes, you can use names because they're actual words. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next question.
All right, thank you, my brother.
No,
thank you.
I'm the expert.
No. Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Is there a next question?
All right, let's go to the next caller.
Yeah, we done, brother. You didn't answer the question.
All right. All right, peace and Black Power family. What's your name and where are you calling from? Peace. What's your name? Where you calling from? He probably couldn't hear. Let me try to call him back. Peace. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Shalom, my name is JJ.
Shame.
What?
Shame.
What is that?
All right, JJ in the building. What up, JJ?
Nah, you know, Nah. See, remember
I can't really hear you, JJ.
JJ?
Let me get off speaker. Okay, remember when I called in earlier, right?
Yes.
I said that me and Black Jesus.
You got a lot of air behind you, Tahuti. Let me put yours on mute. You got a lot of air.
Yeah, put this on mute. Okay, that's what it is. And shout out to the Lions Den. But I called earlier and said that me and Black Jesus is friends. But when I don't agree with the information, me and him, we go back and forth. All right, so now Tehuti and I are friends. So I'm trying to get to this information right here where the brothers, I missed most of the show. So I'm asking him, is he saying that Christ is not a historical, real being?
Yes, that's exactly what he's saying. He's taking that position.
Okay. All right. So are you saying that the gods of Kemet, because you're on record saying this, are real? Dude. That's my question.
I'm on mute.
You got the AC on, don't you, brother?
Me, no, I have nothing on. I don't know what I don't know what.
Can you?
Hold on.
Here?
He's trying to answer.
Let me elaborate. Let me add more. How can you get on here and say Christ ain't real, But the majority of the Kemetics who follow Kemetic traditions or spirituality, they claim that Neterer is just nature. You have actually came into the den. That's why I, kind of clicked with you, because you said the guys were real.
All right.
What makes your guys? Here's my question: what makes your guys real and not the ones of the Bible?
Real quick, before I let Tahuti on, JJ, you got to look at the title of the debate. The debate is not even about Kemet. The debate is not about Kemet at all. The debate was Jesus Christ historical or mythological? That is the question.
Okay.
And then hold on. But see, when we had Kemet on trial debate, it was all strictly about Kemet on trial, But see, when somebody put the Bible on trial or Jesus on trial, we start referring to Kemet in Egypt. That shouldn't even come up, because we should be talking about proving is Christ real or not, brother. But go ahead, JJ. I'm gonna let him go ahead.
Brother, this is he's one of the Lions Den champions. You know what I'm saying? He came over here and kicked ass with me when he whooped up on Zion Lex and Jabari and his wife. He did all that. You see what I'm saying? He did that. But I cannot sit up here and let Tehuti, which is my brother, just like Jesus, there's a difference between us and the Lions Den. We don't hold hands. I cannot let him get on here and say that the gods of Kemet is real, but not the gods of the Bible. What makes the difference?
Okay, peace. Is that the final question came out?
Yes, go ahead, Tahuti.
Okay, so yes, the title of the debate is strictly about Jesus. I'm not here in this conversation to defend any of my teachings as far as the gods of Kemet. Me and Jabari already had that debate. My point also with every culture, regardless of my personal stance in the culture, if you're going to say something about a culture, say something that they say about themselves. Quote what they say. Did the ancient Kemetians teach that the ancient Neter were beings? Yes. Did they also teach that they're symbolic? Yes. Did Hebrews teach that there was a Jesus? No. That's the point. I'm not here to argue whether it's right or wrong. I'm here to say, where are the Hebrew teachings of a Jesus? Just one sentence of a Hebrew writing in Phoenician or Aramaic or Hebrew, whatever you want to call it today. Did any Hebrews believe that this man named Jesus was walking around at the time when he was affecting people's lives? Once we present that, and once you show that, then we can talk about that. Okay, so my acknowledgement of the Neteru, Vocab, Malone try to do the same thing, is irrelevant to this. If I right now say the Neteru didn't even exist, I don't believe in them anymore, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, it's completely irrelevant to the subject matter of the debate topic. So did Jesus exist according to Hebrews, ancient Hebrews? I don't. If you could, okay, here's what we'll do, JJ. Could you point me to a Hebrew written reference of a Yeshua between the years of 1 AD to 33? Could you show me a Hebrew reference?
Okay, I'm gonna talk again. You're gonna show me the bones.
I can't seem to hear him.
You show me the first bones of your Kemetic king. You know who he is, right? Neymar.
Hold on, I don't think you heard. I don't think you heard me. This is this debate about Neymar?
Oh, hey, you know how we get down in the game, bro. This is not personal. This is just...
Yo, JJ.
Is this debate about
JJ, real quick. What you should be doing is coming in, proving that Jesus.
Good enough of that.
You should be proving that Jesus exists, brother. Not trying to prove Kemet. That's not helping Vocab. That's not helping his side. You and Vocab believe in Yeshua. You should be coming and talking about Yeshua, Jesus. Not all the other stuff. Now, Vocab can do with that because he's the head. He's the head man that's dealing with the debate. But when you come in, you changing the whole topic to something else. It's not about Kemet, brother. is about a historical Christ. Was he real? Did he exist?
Because I asked a logical question. How in the hell could Tehuti get on here and say, Kemet is real? Well, motherfucker, none of you can agree with each other because Jabari's saying something different. So see, y'all see the confusion? Remember the show you did earlier? You said Israelites don't agree. Well, now here's a perfect example of my scientific study that just shows that Jabari is saying they just naturalists. Tehuti is saying they real. Okay, I can rock with Tehuti on that, but what I can't rock with Tehuti on is how in the hell he gonna say his guys is real, but not mine.
All right, JJ.
Yeah,
you got it, brother.
Tehuti, I love you. Hey, but we gonna have to have this conversation, Aki. Hey, peace and blessings. I'm out.
All right, peace. All right. You want to say something, Tahuti? And
I don't know how this is turning. If there's a debate set up about Kemet, that's one thing, but this is about Jesus specifically, and I don't see any ancient Hebrew records of Jesus to even tell me that they believed he existed. Did the ancient Hebrews believe Jesus existed? Forget about us. Did they even believe in it? I want to hear. Let's hear from their words. Somebody quote them, please.
All right. Vocab, you want to say something real quick before I move to the next caller?
Yes.
Ahead,
it's about Mary. I think this will be very important. This will be very important. Check this out. If I could show my screen.
You up.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. A few things. Number one is the name Mary is in the New Testament about 6 times. I want to know, are all those ISIS? All 6 of those Marys are all ISIS? And here's what's interesting about Mary. It can describe other gods as well, even inanimate objects. Look at this. This is an example from what's called an archaic dictionary. Do you see these?
Yeah.
So he's trying to make it, it's just one god, Isis, one goddess, but it's not. It's much more than that. And so it's not relevant to, he's just trying to limit it to one god, but it's a bunch of gods. So look at this. It's right here. Not only, and here you even have a lake. Mary, the lake. It's an inanimate object here. So how is it that he wants to limit it to Isis and then say it's just the Mary, the mother of Jesus in the Bible, when there's also 6 Marys in the Bible? This is what I'm saying. I know the audience is predisposed to like Tehuti because he's saying their religion. It's like preaching to the choir, literally. So, of course, you're going to like it. But I want you guys to really think and ask yourself, is this what you consider scholarship? Look at the dishonesty there. Mary is multiple names can be for Mary, including inanimate objects, not just Isis. And then there's multiple Marys in the New Testament. So try to make a connection just between Isis and Mother Jesus is ridiculous. And this is why no scholar accepts this kind of theory. That's why he's alone. That's why he couldn't name any scholars that he reads or interacts with. And by the way, one thing that true academics do, or people interested in academia, they find out the strongest opposing position. They find out what the scholars say about the issue. The people who do this for a living, they at least know what they say, even if they don't agree. But this man admits to having total ignorance of the experts in the field. And I would even say some display of ignorance of really his own sources, because Mary is not Isis. It just means beloved. That's all it is. That's all it is. Isis is a set.
Caller from the 9013. 9013. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Ken. I'm calling from Illinois.
All right. What's your question?
Yes, Vocab. And I didn't watch the whole debate, so forgive me if I asked something that was already answered. So Vocab, Jesus was a man?
Jesus was a man, yes.
What was the color of his skin?
Don't know. Bible never says. And all the pictures of him are super late.
What do you think the color of his skin is?
He didn't look like a European because he's not from Europe.
Okay. Where is Jesus now?
At the right hand of the Father, which is simply a way to say in the divine presence.
Okay, so if Jesus exists, how come he just doesn't reveal himself? Just to clear up all the confusion. I'm gonna hang up and listen. Thank you.
Well, he did. That's exactly what happened in the first century. But his own rejected him, the Bible says in John 1. And now you have people years later following outdated European scholarship like Massey, who are also trying to deny that he did, but he did that exact thing. And the Bible says that he's coming back. Now, if you're a Hebrew Israelite, you think he's going to come back to kill and slaughter everyone on a racist tirade. But that's not what the scripture says. The Bible does say he's the judge, but it's not because he's a racist like ISUPK. And so it's important to understand that. And when he comes back, we're not going to be focused on the color of his skin, but we'll be focused on his glory and power and majesty, just like in Revelation 1, which is what that passage is about. Not about a skin color. But I bet he looked like a dark-skinned Egyptian because we have or we have pictures of Egyptians from the area, and Hebrews are roughly similar to them. So, if you had to guess, something like that.
All right, Rob Bourne, you there?
Yo.
What's happening, Rob Bourne?
Yeah, man. Peace to the chat. Peace to
Peace.
the oldest debate in the world. I just got a question. This for you, Vocab. In the first century, is this guy that you're calling Jesus, what really makes him, the virgin, the resurrection, is that a unique motif in that time frame that will only be referred to this man?
Which element's a unique motif? Are you saying specifically the virgin birth?
Virgin birth, crucified, died, resurrected.
Yes. Everything about Jesus isn't unique because Jesus was a human. So he breathed water and he spoke sayings, right? So it's not like Jesus was an alien.
No, brother.
That specifically, The dying and rising God concept to which you refer is again outdated. Scholars don't hold to that anymore.
No, hold on, brother. Wait. I said I'm being real clear. I said in that time frame. I'm not talking about Kemet. I'm saying in the time frame in the first century, said is that motif of being born from a virgin and rising from the dead unique to this individual? Because that's what makes him God. That's the question.
Well, that's not what makes him God. What makes him God is his nature that he already possesses before his incarnation. But yes, it is unique for a few reasons. One is the terminology.
Uh-huh.
When Egyptians use the word we now say in English as resurrection, and the Hebrews use it, they don't mean the same thing. Perfect example is gods who rule the underworld, basically like zombies. And that's why some of these gods are portrayed in mummified forms. That's not what the Hebrews meant. And you can see that from the apocryphal writings where you have some Hebrews who are being killed by Romans. And basically one of them basically throws their guts at him as he's dying and says, I'm going to get these back in the resurrection. So you understand it's a very physical thing, unlike the Greeks who hated the body and viewed the body as a prison house or a jailhouse for the soul. So the physical resurrection was very unique. In fact, most Hebrews didn't expect it. They expected the resurrection at the end of time, not in the middle. And that's exactly what is said on the way to Lazarus. Remember, Jesus says about he's asking the woman about the situation. He says, yeah, I know Lazarus will rise again at the end, but Jesus proceeds to say, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes on me will not die, but have everlasting life. And then he says, do you believe? And then he shows that by raising Lazarus from the dead. So the point there is that this is a very physical thing, very different than all those pagan deities. And that's why I spent some time showing that those virgin births aren't really virgin conceptions. Having sex as a bird with a dead corpse that's your brother / husband with a penis you made out of gold is not a virgin sex story.
Brother, bro, can you hear me? Respectively, I'm not talking about Egypt, and I'm not a Commission. I'm not one of them. I am. I was
just giving that as an example.
No. I just want to stay on what I asked you. So now I want you to explain this. So I asked you this for a specific reason, because what makes there's only one book or scholar that has what you would say a peer review work on this person, and he says he's 33% real. None of them bear witness to the things that make this person the super god, which is the virgin birth and all that other stuff. They don't talk about that. You can't prove that. They will say, okay, there was a man named Jesus, whoop-de-doo, right? So what do you say about Justin Martyr in the first century when he says this? Analogy to the history of Christ. When we also say that the word is the first birth of God, was produced without sexual union, and that he, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was crucified and died and rose again and ascended into heaven, we propound nothing different from what you believe regarding those whom you esteem sons of Jupiter. As to the objection of Jesus being crucified, I say that suffering was common to all the aforementioned sons of Jupiter. As to his being born of a virgin, you have heresy to balance that. As to his curing the lame and the paralytic and such as were cripples from birth, there is little more than what you say of your Asclepius. So the reason I asked you that, the body that makes this person God, healing the dead, dealing with cripples, making the blind see, curing the lame, all of these things exist in the first century in this time. So I'm not even looking at Egypt. And when you said that it was unique, your church father said you are incorrect. So, I don't really have nothing else to say at this point because you already answered the question. You dug your grave already. You just picked it up and you put yourself in the grave.
All right.
That was too easy.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Stay on. Hold on. You're talking trash. Stay on. I got you. Name one God. Name.
Hold on, Rabon. Let him
stay on the line. Don't run. Name one God. Name one God born of a virgin.
Your church father did.
No. I'm asking you from the primary source, not from Justin Martyr, whose goal was to try to show the Romans Christianity wasn't that different. I knew what he was trying to do. I'm asking you, can you show one God who's born of a virgin?
Listen to me, brother. It's the reason I asked my question the way I asked it to you. I said, in the time frame of the first century, is this story unique? And when he opens up, when we say also that the Word, who is the first birth of God, who produced for sexual union without sexual union, and that he, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was crucified and died and rose again to heaven, we propound nothing different from you that you believe regarding those who you esteem the sons of Jupiter. Unless you're calling your church father a liar, and do we have to look up Jupiter and Job once we go through those stories? That's up to you if you want to do that.
Yes, that's hey, hold on, stop. That's exactly what someone interested in scholarship. No, you said what you said. I hear you. Now, can I respond to him?
Hold on. All I want to be clear. Let's just stop the playing. So I asked you, is this unique? This motif where people saying these things in this time period? You said no. You said it is unique to this person. So is Justin Martyr, the church father, a liar? Yes or no?
Justin Martyr is not infallible. I'm not a Catholic, so I don't have to hold everything.
Is he a liar?
He's writing. I think around 150. So he's not in the first century. So that's important to understand. He didn't have access to the entire New Testament canon. That's important to understand as well. And what any good person would do who actually investigates these matters would go to look at the primary sources. So Justin Martyr can say something and he can make a mistake, which when he's trying to show the similarities, he's not right there. Let's go to the sources and look at the sons of Jupiter.
No, we hear you, Rod. You got to let them finish. And
do you understand? Quoting Justin Martyr here doesn't show what the original myths say.
Damn, that's fine, brother. Listen, the question was clear. I asked you, is this unique? Were people saying these things? That's the reason why I asked you that. You tried to take me to Egypt and birds. You thought I was a Commission.
No, that's not why. That's not why I did it.
So anyway, the point of the matter was.
Do you even know who Jupiter is? Do you know who Jupiter is?
Listen, I know who Jove is, bro. Listen.
No, Jupiter. Who's Jupiter?
Brother, listen.
It's Zeus.
Bro, listen.
Zeus had sex with the women, bro. He had sex with them.
Listen, bro.
He seduced them and did it.
Do they have a virgin birth story? Yes or no, bro?
Jupiter is Zeus, basically, and Zeus had sex with these ladies. He seduced them. You know this.
You're lucky I can't show my screen because I will body you right now because you're trying to say that ain't no virgin birth attached to Job. So did you really read this? What you're talking to me about?
So now you're
brother. I'm done. Yo, listen. There's only one scholarly peer-reviewed person who wrote on Jesus. And every scholar says that it is a person who could have possibly existed. The things that make him hold on, bro.
Who is this person?
The things that make wait a minute, man.
Tell us who the person is, please.
Chill, bro.
Can you just tell us?
Yo, could you just relax for a second, bro?
Chill, Vocab.
Down, bro.
Let him ask the question, Vocab.
Only one of us is yelling. I don't know what you're so upset about. Could you just tell us who this person is?
Calm down. You keep cutting me off. That's why I keep asking to y'all hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
All scholars say that there's a person named Jesus that could have existed. The things that make him who he is, the God that you're talking about that's sitting in heaven that you can't prove because it only exists in your goddamn book. It don't exist outside. There's no verification of this. There is no man that can rise from the dead and come back. That is impossible. It ain't happening. Those are the things that no scholar can prove. That is theology, just like every other religion on the planet Earth that was created by man.
Call.
Goes to
man, it's Keon.
On any of that.
To accept, press.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, Rob Bourne, we got to move forward. Thank you, brother.
You're just a Bible believer, bro. That's
all right.
fine.
Thanks. Peace and Black Power family. Hey, hold on. Before I move to the last caller of the night, Tahuti, do you want to respond to any of this?
Yes, I do. Let me put my headphones back in.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me clear?
I hear you. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. No, in reality, there's no virgin births in actual reality. The concept of the virgin birth is just to reenact. Let me do something real quick. Let me do this. Can you see my screen, Saw?
Yep. It's up.
Okay. So the concept of the virgin birth and the concept of Jesus being born in Bethlehem, coming from this symbol right here. This is the Virgo. This is the symbol for Virgo, and it all goes back to astrology, not astronomy, but astrology, which is the M symbol, and the Vesica Pisces are the fish symbol, which became the symbol known on the back of Christian cars, which is the measurement of the fish, the 153 mathematics of Pythagoras. This is the Virgo, which is the M, which begins the word Mary. This is where the concept comes from. And not an actual virgin that gave birth to anybody, but an actual Virgo star constellation, because it deals with the harvesting time period. And the harvesting time period of the Virgo goes back to August to September. And it was Virgo, not any kind of virgin. And they took these astrology stories and astrology symbols and they attributed them to the biblical characters. And this is why, once again, we can't find any actual Hebrews of the time speaking of a virgin birth. When they say Jesus was born in Bethlehem, it's because of the harvesting, because Bethlehem literally means the house of bread, which goes back to this harvesting season of the Virgo star constellation. So no, there's no virgin birth in any of the cultures that are actually real. These are all symbolic stories which became placed inside of the Bible and the New Testament. And once again, can't find any Hebrew talking about. It'd be amazing. Imagine a virgin birth in ancient times and no Hebrew talks about it. It's amazing.
All right. Not you, Pastor Bennett, but you are next. All right, the caller. What's going on? The caller with the 1087. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Shy, and everybody over there? I appreciate everybody, information that y'all giving out, especially you, Tahuti. I really mess with you, my dude. Mess with you. Question is, and we're going to go back to how Tahuti said, we're going to go off a timeline and originality. I'm going to ask Vocab this, okay? If your God who brought out Jesus and everything, right, how come that isn't the first deity or anything that we know of, and we have deities before him? If he's the beginning and creator of everything, how come those first people that we got came up with their own deities instead of just Jesus' deity? Why wasn't that the first thing that came along, and we got all these other deities first, and then Jesus came, like he said, after
the timeline of, okay, they did this, and then this time went by, and then they brought this Jesus up. How come that wasn't in the beginning if it started from the beginning? Can you answer that question to me, Vocab? Why wasn't that brought up, and how come these other deities that came before that?
Yeah, because pagans are idolaters.
But if you brought out Jesus first, if Jesus came first, we wouldn't have no room for the idolaters, and like he was never mentioned before.
1 Corinthians.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you know, if he was here and they say, hey, this is Jesus, God came to us and say, hey, we believe in this God and such, and God is the most powerful, and he got us this God, but you know what? We don't believe in you, but that never happened because Jesus didn't come along until way after these other deities happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, as far as Jesus being born in history, you know, that happened, that happened at a certain place in time. That's true. But of course, the Hebrews were prior to that, and they were God's covenant people prior to that. And they're worshipers of Yahweh. And prior to that, it goes back to even people before them who are accounted in the book of Genesis, or recounted rather. But 1 Corinthians 10:20 is part of the answer as well, where the Apostle Paul says this is important. I imply that what the pagans sacrifice, they offer to demons and not to God. So like when, the ancient Kemets were given libations to their gods, that's what was happening. I do not want you to be participants with demons. That's 1 Corinthians 10:20. So even as God reveals himself to his creatures in his creation, the tendency is not to submit. The tendency is not to bow. The tendency is not to offer true worship. The tendency is to make gods in our own images and gods that look like the creation. That's why in Egypt, the gods are people's bodies with animal heads or something like that. It's literally fulfilling Romans 1, which says people worship the creation instead of the creator. So God has revealed himself all the way back in the book of Genesis, but mankind constantly rebels. And that's why every one of us, including me, needs a supernatural work on our heart to change from self-worship, which is all idols really are, to worshiping the one true God. Thank you for that, though. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. All right. Peace and black power. Pastor Bennett in the building. What up, Pastor?
Hey, peace. Another piece to the panel. Thanks for letting me get this question in real quick. I'm going to ask it real quick, and then I'm going to jump off to here. This question is for Tehuti. Tehuti, earlier you said, give me just one source. Give me some sources of the Hebrew or whatever. And you stated between 1 AD and 30 AD. My question to you is, when dealing with the historicity or whether Jesus is a historical figure, what source do you have that scholars demand sources from the time of a person's life, and they don't accept sources after a person's life to judge the historicity? And before that question, before you answer that question, I'm going to read this as the foundation for my question. What is sometimes underappreciated by mythicists who want to discount the value of the Gospels for establishing the historical existence of Jesus is that our surviving accounts, which began to be written some 40 years after the traditional date of Jesus' death, were based on earlier written sources that no longer survive. But they obviously did exist at one time, and they just as obviously had to predate the Gospels that we now have. So my question based on that is, why are you demanding to judge historicity from 1 to AD to 30 when no scholar would judge whether somebody existed by only accepting whatever writings or whatever evidence there is of that existence from a specific date? And what source do you have that judges?
Peace, brother. This is Brother Bennett. Peace. Okay, once again, I'm not concerned with the standards of modern day European structured scholars and what they demand. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. I'm interested in what the people say about themselves, period. I'm not here to debate whether what they believed in was right or wrong. I'm just here to discuss what did they actually say about themselves. So whether modern day scholars developed in modern day colleges and universities a set standards of what they believe academics is and what they will accept in 2020 is completely irrelevant to me. My stake is always with the original people. I'm here to defend what did the original people say about themselves. And I know for a fact that if the long-awaited Messiah that they've been writing about for thousands of years finally arrived on earth and affected people's lives, resurrected people from the dead, walked on water, fed 5,000 people, fulfilled all the prophecies, crucified, all of this that was going on, that was happening, I know that at least two, in 33 years, at least one person would say, hey, let me write about this. This is the form of racism that I'm focused on, that we will go by the standards of modern European scholars over what the original indigenous people say about their own selves. I'm not into that. I'm into, what did these people say? If you tell me about Chinese people and their belief, I'm going to say, show me them saying it. Not what anybody else says. Show me one Hebrew. Are we saying that the Hebrews were so ignorant they were too illiterate to write? For 70 years they couldn't write a sentence in their own language? How could this be that not a person, not a child, not a doctor, not a dentist, not a Hebrew maidservant, nobody wrote down, Jesus came? This is complete, because it's made up. It's a made up story.
Okay, so the problem, I'm gonna get off that.
Is this another?
Maybe Vocab can touch on this a little bit. The problem is what Tehuti basically just said is, I don't care what scholars say, I'm just making it up. Because the reality is, you made a declaration.
I did not say any such thing. I did not say any such thing, sir. Please quote me properly. I did not say I'm making up anything. I said I go by what the people say about themselves. Please stop lying. If you're a Christian, especially a pastor, you should not be on here lying. I did not say that I'm making things up. I said I'm going by what the people say about themselves before I was born. Not that I'm making it up. What did the people say about their own culture? Please do not lie, sir. Thank you.
I got you. All right. So again, I'm going to say what I heard Tehuti to be saying was that he does not care what scholarly research says. So he says he wants from the people. Yet the reason I asked that question, because he won't accept Paul's letter, who Paul states himself, I am a Hebrew of the Hebrews. He won't accept Paul's letter. He asked for a Hebrew. All scholars
Paul never met Jesus, sir. Paul never saw him.
Except Paul's letter. And in Paul's letter, he stated himself, he's a Hebrew of the Hebrew. Now, that's quite different from a Hebrew stating he's a Hebrew to you saying you don't accept white scholarship when every meta that you're reading of is from white scholars. Every decoding that you're reading here, you're getting from white people decoding it. That's very interesting.
Can you show me where Paul saw Jesus, please, sir? Sir, can you show me where and can you show me in Paul's writings where he said he saw Jesus? I want to look that up.
Acts chapter 9. This is not difficult.
So what you're saying, what you're eventually, and go ahead, Vocab, I just asked this so I can hang up. Vocab, I asked you to touch on scholarly research accepting letters during the time of somebody's life, after the time of somebody's life, to determine historicity. If you reject after the time of somebody's life, then you're not trying to get historicity. And then please touch on Paul stating he's a Hebrew of Hebrew, his connection to Peter, so on and so forth. Please.
I mean, those are excellent points. You know, Tehuti's been quoting from Budge all night. Budge was British, and he's ignoring the fact that Hebrews, when they wanted to communicate with a larger audience, wrote in Greek. Tehuti, for some reason, has a problem with that. I don't know why, since the ancient Egyptians forgot how to even speak their own language for a time. So you couldn't even get accounts in the ancient language when it would come to Kemet. So you notice he's using one standard for one set of things and not applying it in other places. And I'll give you a perfect example of that as it relates to history. Hannibal. Everybody knows who Hannibal is, a great general, went up against Rome, powerful, born 247 BC. And yet we don't have any mentions of Hannibal until Livy and Polybus. Way later, 200 to 118. Way later. Livy, look up the dates of when these historians wrote. So if he wants to use this kind of standard, then Hannibal doesn't exist either, according to Tehuti. This is someone who no historian follows the methodology, because it would render knowledge of the past useless. No one would be able to know anything about the past. And yet he thinks Osiris really existed and is an alien dwelling in some other planet or something like that, but doesn't think Jesus existed. And when we give him a Hebrew, he says, oh, that one doesn't count. Paul did meet Jesus. He talked about it in Acts 9. It's talked about, I believe, at the end of Acts as well. And that's not the only place. And so I don't know why you said, show me where he met him. He did. He was one born out of time. But see, you moved the goalpost, because when we gave you someone who did walk with Jesus, you came up with some other excuse of why it didn't work. So this is why all night you've just been moving the goalposts. You're not referring to any scholarship. You're not referring to anything that's understood of historiography. And you've made up your own kind of standard that you yourself don't even follow. Because if you did, you would have to get rid of almost everybody from ancient Kemet. Because when you got that king's list, do you know what it's written on? I heard you quote the king's list before in your debates. The back of a piece of paper from Ramses II's reign. Huh. And yet it goes way back to these kings. And it's in crappy condition too, if you've seen it. Yet you refer to it like it's gospel. And it's the only surviving copy. When it comes to the Gospels and the New Testament as a whole, we have 6,000 copies in Greek. And yet he's going to point to a king's list, which has more holes in it than Swiss cheese, and says, look at this, written on something from the reign of Ramses II. And it could have even been later. We just know the paper has that. I don't know if he knows this stuff.
Thank you, man.
But this shows why no one buys this stuff. The Kemetic thesis about who Jesus is, no one buys it because it's based on shoddy scholarship. The internet might believe it, but eventually the facts are won out. And when they are,
all right. So vocab. Right now it's time for closing out. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to go ahead and take us out here. Close us out, brother. You got 5 minutes.
All right, if I could share my screen for one thing here.
Yes.
So Tehuti's been telling us, he said multiple times this thing about, hey, Bethlehem, if you could move that, yeah. Bethlehem, hey, that's just a ripoff of something from ancient Egypt, but maybe Tehuti, Bethlehem is a real place. It was. Eli Shukran. Look what he says about this. Here we can read the word Bethlehem in a clear Hebrew inscription from the First Temple period on a bulla found in Israel that arrived from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, maybe to pay some tax. This is the Bethlehem next to Jerusalem referred to the Bible. So you can look this up. You can look up a story, maybe like Israeli archaeologist, find seal that mentions Bethlehem, something like that. This isn't the only example, but he tries to make some kind of cosmic mythical connection. But the fact is, Bethlehem was simply a real place in real time. And here you have, during the same period Jesus lived, which is First Temple, found in Israel, that had got to Bethlehem from Jerusalem. And you see it right there. Now, the thing is, there's lots of examples of stuff like this, but Tehuti wants to mythologize it all night. He wants to try to mythologize Jesus Christ. He wants to try to mythologize everything here. But the reason why no one buys this idea is because it's not founded on good historical evidence. What people who hold to the Christ myth theory, what they have to end up doing basically is they have to work really hard to avoid evidence. They don't deal with evidence head on. They have to work to avoid the evidence. And this is a real problem and shows a lack of understanding of how we deal with things from this time period. And you can't talk about this time period if you don't understand what's going on. If I could share my screen again, please, here. I think it's important to remind everybody where we've been. Well, Sonetta has left, so I can't share my screen. But all right, well, if he comes back, hopefully he puts it up. There's multiple sources outside the New Testament that attest to Jesus. Pliny the Younger, who talks about his followers thought he was God. He specifically says it. They worship Christ as a God. showing that he understood him to be a man, and yet he understood his followers to worship him as if he was a god. And that's early. That's 112 in Bithynia. Suetonius talks about something that confirms the book of Acts. Celsus, a harsh Roman pagan critic. Tehuti has never answered why no early critics of Christianity have the thesis he had, which is that Jesus didn't exist. Would I be able to share my screen, Sonetta? Josephus, he asked for a Hebrew writing in the 1st century. Josephus met those credentials, and yet because Josephus wanted his audience to read what he wrote in Greek, even though during our discussion, Tehuti made the mistake of saying, where's the Hebrew manuscript of Josephus? And also, there's hardly any actual manuscripts that survive from the ancient world unless you wrote it on rocks or wall, which still doesn't guarantee it will survive. Things written on vellum lasted longer than things on papyrus, but things on papyrus didn't last as long either unless they were in a dry climate like Egypt. So it's just an understanding of paleography there. Talmud. The Talmud actually would also qualify for the silly standards he set up because it's Hebrews writing in Hebrew about a Hebrew. The challenge with the Talmud is that it's from earlier times, but collated at a later date. But nonetheless, it has information about Jesus, including claiming that he had magical powers from Satan. Now, what this shows is a reflection of what was in the New Testament. What was in the New Testament is people who disagree with Jesus saying, you cast out demons by Beelzebub, which is exactly what's said in the Talmud, along with the charge about disciples stealing the body and all that kind of stuff. Thales. This is a fascinating one, along with Phlegon, because both of them write and deal with the surrounding things with Jesus's death. And the way we know this is because of Julianus Africanus. Julianus Africanus. He kept in his work, he was a historian, the writings of earlier historians, and he wrote about a 1st century historian. So it's important to understand, one of the men on the screen, Thales, on the bottom left-hand corner, Thales is a 1st century historian. So that would also qualify by Tehuti's standard, yet he won't accept it because he's a believer. He has blind faith in the Christ myth theory. And Julius Africanus, I think, would also qualify for his silliness by who he is. But if you look, he contains those. That's another one. Tacitus, same thing. I read that. He never dealt with Tacitus. Bar Serapion, he never dealt with that one either. So you just have issue after issue where he's avoiding any kind of real evidence. I encourage people, if they want to actually look at some good books on this instead of watching YouTube videos, here are 2 absolute defeaters for the Christ myth theory. One is Unmasking the Pagan Christ by Stanley Porter and Stephen Bedard. He does great work on this because a lot of these folks get their stuff from Tom Harper, and this book dismantles Tom Harper. And the Historical Jesus, which shows multiple sources within hostile witnesses and all kinds of other stuff that are early and good. We have fantastic evidence for Jesus. Only someone not familiar with that period of time and general historiography would say what Tehuti is saying, and that's important to understand. And that's why people like Bart Ehrman say what they say. And even how close they were written to the events is incredibly good as well. So we have all kinds of problems with this theory. And whenever they try to do a similarity, like with the virgin birth, we see that it's wrong. Isis was not a virgin when she conceived Horus. The text never claims that. It is the result of sexual intercourse between Isis and Osiris, which I remind everybody is brother or sister, and one guy is dead, and their husband and wife, and she's in a form of a bird. I mean, there's all kinds of problems with this. They don't pre-exist their birth. They have their own origin story as well. And so this is a massive problem in the methodology of how this is done. And that's why a lot of times these guys, when they do end up citing sources, they end up citing sources from outdated European scholars. Now, shout out to MJ Jackson again, who helped out with some of these ideas. So much love to him and Adam Coleman and BK. And when we look at the death and resurrection of Jesus, we hear the dying and rising God motif is
all right. That's time.
Oh, okay.
All right. Close out. Go ahead. That's it. All right. Thank you, Vocab. You can stay there. Let Tahuti close out. Tahuti is on you, my brother.
Okay. Peace. All right. So once again, the brother Pastor Bennett and Vocab Malone are citing Paul as a witness to Jesus, and they said Paul met Jesus. In the story of Paul and Jesus, which I'll go ahead and share my screen because there's actually three contradicting stories of it. But in the story of Paul and his encounter with Jesus comes in the form of a vision. He himself never sees Jesus in any type of physical form. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see where we are. Go ahead and share it. Because I would like to see where Paul himself says he met Jesus. He actually never said that. That's a claim, and that's actually a lie, and these pastors should not be lying. But am I sharing my screen?
For some reason, it's not coming on.
Okay, let me stop.
Take it off and start it again.
Okay. Okay. How about now?
All right, it's up and running.
Okay, good. So here's the story of Paul. One of them, the story of Paul and his journey to Damascus. And Acts 9:3, as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined around about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why is thou persecuting me? Saul says, and he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, who thou persecuted. This is the first vision of it, the first story of it. The next one is he had a vision. These are stories of visions and voices, things that are taking place in this man's head. He never said he met Jesus. He never said he saw Jesus. He never shook Jesus' hands. He never touched Jesus. This is, and I want people to make note, this is after all of the events that I'm inquiring about. The events of him multiplying 5,000 loaves of bread for 5,000 people. The account of dead people rising up from the grave and walking into the cities. Him resurrecting Lazarus. Him walking on water and resurrecting in front of 500 witnesses. That Jesus was so popular that that fame of his glory traveled around the cities and people came to rush to see him. After all this supposedly took place, Paul's persecuting, and then he says, remember, this is in his book. If you believe in it, it's because you're believing in what a man is saying about himself, about a voice. Not that he witnessed any of Jesus' occurrences. So Pastor Bennett and Malone are constantly moving the goalposts from my question and from my topic, which is, where is the first-hand account of a Hebrew discussing their experience of Jesus between the years that he's doing all of these supposed grand miracles, saying that they saw this? This is after the fact, and Paul himself never said he saw Jesus. He said he heard a voice. Let me take it off the screen share and go back to the screen. Okay, so of course, if you just rattle on this story really fast, yeah, Paul saw Jesus and he was a Hebrew, and see, the Hebrew said it. No, let's take it nice and slow. This is years afterwards. Paul claims he hears a voice in his head. There's many people who hear voices in their head. And they say, I saw this and heard this in my head. There's nobody that claims they witnessed what Paul saw. He heard his voice in his own head. So once again, we will end this by, and I also want to point out that the consistent attack on what people think I believe about Kemet or teach is completely irrelevant to subject matter. But they must resort to me saying that I believe Asar was an alien. Never did I make such a claim. All type of things that have nothing to do with the debate topic. And the debate topic is, did anybody see or write about the events that Jesus supposedly did to show that he was some type of historical character? And absolutely not. No ancient Hebrew believed in a Jesus from the year 1 to 70 AD. Let me cut this off. Somebody's calling me. Nobody believed in it. Nobody wrote about it. It did not exist. So this is how we'll end the debate, which is it was never shown that Jesus existed from outside, other than European scholars and Arabic letters and Greek words. No ancient indigenous Hebrew believed in Jesus or wrote about him. If they said they wrote about him, yes.
I want to say thank you for both of you brothers. Thank you, Vocab. Thank you, Tahuti, for taking the time out on this day here to teach our people. And I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, my brothers. I see y'all soon. Maybe the people might want to hold on. Maybe the people might want a part 2 in the future where we give Vocab Malone the ball and let him deal with Kemet. Is Kemet mythological or was Kemet real? And then we could get into something like that, and that'll be powerful. So until then, thank y'all, man. Appreciate that.
Also, Sunday, before I go, I just want to shout out you. Thank you for having me again. This was much better than the last time. And also, everybody, check out my YouTube, Tehuti YouTube. Every Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific is the Tehuti pod class. Check that out. Look for me also on Facebook under Tehuti Brown, but I'm on YouTube. Check it out. Come to classes. Thank you, Sonetter. Thank you, Vocab Malone, and everybody who participated. Peace, Ma'at Hotep.
Peace. Hey, Vocab, let the people know where you can be.
Thank you, Tehuti, as well for the debate. I'm glad you did it. Sonetta, why did Shaka Atmos not do this?
Shaka Atmos was busy. He was busy taking care of something.
But he said he was going to do it.
He said he was going to do it, but you know, I called my man Tahuti.
It sounds like Shaka Atmos ran from little Vocab Malone and Tehuti stepped up to the challenge.
Nah, it ain't nothing like that.
No, it ain't like that.
Trust me.
He didn't. He couldn't just say, "Why don't we reschedule?" Something like that.
No, I just never called him back. You know, I ain't called him back. Yeah.
All right, man.
I ain't gonna throw my brother under the bus, man. None of that. And you know, Tahuti. I mean, you know, Shaka is not scared of you, Vocab. Cut it out, man.
Well, in a time debate, I think he might have some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
In a time debate.
Right.
You see, if it's timed.
I agree with you on that.
He's got some challenges.
Because Shaka will take the 10 minutes and he'll probably get like 2 minutes out of what he wanted to say. That's how Shaka is. So you're right. In the time debate, he might not do so good. You're right. I agree with you on that.
Well, shout out to Shaka, and I hope that he took care of what he needed to take care of. But I'm glad Tehuti did it.
Yeah. All right. Peace, my brothers.
All right. Shalom.
Talk to y'all.